Hello and welcome to Film Lovers. I'm Sonia Chung. I'll be talking to people who work in the film industry and who are also avid film lovers. Today I'm talking to filmmaker Laurel Parker. Hi Laurel, how are you?
Hello, I'm good. Thank you, Sonia. I'm good.
What have you been up to today?
Well, it's Sunday, so that means I'm always at the farmer's market, which is right around the corner.
Okay.
Bought some good vegetables. But if you meant creatively,
Well, just in
did you mean?
general.
Okay.
What you up to? What we've been up to? Whereabouts in
Farmer's market.
London? Oh, okay. So whereabouts in London do you live?
I live in Leytonstone, so East London, right by Stratford.
Okay. And you have an accent, so do you want to tell us where you're from? You're obviously American. So
Yes.
whereabouts from the States are you from?
I was born and raised in San Diego, California, which is
Okay.
the very last city before Mexico. And then spent a lot of time in LA.
Okay. And what attracted you to England and London especially?
Well, my partner at the time got a job over here, and it was only supposed to be 2 years, and the job was willing to pay for our visas and pay for the move over. And I had a number of clients already over here, so I was and running my own company. So I was like, yeah, we're gonna go to London for 2 years, and
Yeah.
that was 15 years ago.
Wow, okay. So you've been here for a long time now.
Yes, yes, I love it.
When's the last time you managed to get back home?
I go home every year, but of course we've just done COVID. So the last
Yeah.
time we were able to get back was it was the 2019.
Okay. Was it quite hard to sort of get back? Did you have to do loads of tests and stuff before you went in?
No, because that was before COVID hit.
Oh, okay.
So I mean,
Okay.
yeah, it was that summer, and then by December Italy was in trouble, and then
Yeah. Because there were early cases of it coming out in 2000, like sort of the autumn of 2019, weren't there? So,
yeah, yeah, I think didn't we have a couple in San Francisco? A guy had come over. He had been in Hong Kong or something. I think
oh,
was like one of
really?
the first cases. Yeah, or Seattle, but up on the west side,
Okay.
we had a couple of cases. But that all happened after I got back to
Okay.
London.
All right. So why don't you tell us about yourself? So basically a timeline of your career, really. So how you developed a passion for film, how you got into it, why you got into it, and basically from when you started, bringing us up to date up to now. So basically, a bit like your life story of your
Okay,
career.
okay. Well, my mom was a huge film fan, and quite honestly, it was the only thing we enjoyed doing together, which was watching movies. And when I was really young, she took me to see Hello Dolly, and that was it. I was bitten and wanted to act, so I studied acting, and all the way up through uh, your first year of college, and I went to drama school, and I loved it, but I missed everything else that I had done. So like music and art and costumes, all that kind of stuff I missed, and I realized that the only person who gets to do all of that is the director. So I switched, and I went and got my bachelor's degree in broadcast, which was just like filmmaking and TV, and
Mm.
then did a graduate degree in film directing, and then moved. I got my graduate degree in Chicago, Illinois, which is amazing but super cold, and then came back to LA and got my first job at Disney, and then moved from Disney to MGM, and then in 2005 MGM it folded for all intents and purposes. It's obviously still around, but it got rid of all but like 100 employees. And so at that point, I was like, fine, I'll start my own company, and started doing bonus material. So all the stuff that goes on the DVDs, and just exploited all my connections to get work. And then moved over to London and continued to grow my client base. So now my company's Mobley Street Productions, and
Okay.
we do, in addition to branded content stuff, we do commercials. We've done ads for Colgate. We do. I just finished doing all of the announcing videos for Prince William's Earthshot Prize.
Oh, Okay, that's really interesting.
Yeah, it was really fascinating. Really, really nice to work for to have a job where you were actually passionate
Mm,
about the subject. That's unusual if it's not like a narrative film. It's a commercial piece. Obviously, you're happy for the work, you enjoy doing it, but in this case, I was also extremely proud of the product, which is
yeah.
the Earshot product.
So it's a bit of a passion project in a way.
Yes, a well-paid passion project.
Yes. That's always a bonus, isn't it?
That's the perfect. That's what you want in life, a well-paid bonus project
um,
or
so,
passion project.
how did you sort of start off in filmmaking other than after you graduated? So did you do like the wedding photography thing, and then that's how you got into it, or did you do lots of sort of student films afterwards? And like, how did you sort of break into it?
When I was in Chicago, I did do because I had done a lot of marketing research,
Okay.
so I did become a videographer and shoot. I don't know if you've ever been to one of those where you go into a room and there's a glass and you can't see behind the glass. Well, behind the glass was me with the video camera taping focus groups, is what they were called. So I did do
Oh,
some of that for
okay.
cash.
Yes.
But the graduate program I was in at the time was absolutely amazing. It's Columbia, and we were on set all the time, and we were shooting with film. So uh, I don't think, I mean, I barely did a video shoot. It was all film, but I mean, just all the time, on shoots all the time, and it was fabulous. You got just that taste of it. That
Mm.
even when you're on a short film, you guys all, you bond. It becomes a team, and you're all trying to get this film done. And so, yeah, I mean, I was already bitten, but that sealed the deal.
Yeah. Yeah. What were your influences growing up? Like any?
Huge, huge, huge fan of Hitchcock. I
Oh,
know I should
really?
be, yeah, I should be like promoting an amazing female, like I don't
Sophia.
know. No, not Sophia Coppola, no.
No,
More
Catherine.
like yeah, maybe, yeah, maybe. But when I remember really distinctly, like I knew Hitchcock for The Birds and I knew Hitchcock for Psycho, and I didn't
Mhm.
really like either film. And I went to go see Rear Window, and I was blown away. It
Really?
was so much fun, so beautiful. He's got a great tongue-in-cheek way of delivering things. Like there's always just a wink, wink.
Mm.
And to me, I thought this was a perfect film because it was completely artistic, completely beautiful, but it was also super palatable. It was super easy for anyone to watch. So it
Mm.
wasn't like a hard watch, like a Tarkovsky film.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong, I love a Tarkovsky, but you need a big pot of coffee and you need to, sit
Yes.
on, be ready for three
Yes, for
hours.
lots to take in your brain.
Yeah, yeah, and you have to take a break and go, God damn, what did I just see? And how did that? Oh my God, that was amazing. And I love that. I mean, don't get
Mm.
me wrong, I absolutely love those films too. But this, I mean, this just hit the spot. I was like, that's the kind of film I want to make. That's it.
How old were you when you first watched the first?
Rear
So, how
Window.
old were you when you watched your first Hitchcock film?
Well, if we take which we should, Psycho and The Birds out, I think I was maybe 14 when I saw Rear Window.
Okay.
So yeah, I was just like, okay, done. Every one of my high school papers is Hitchcock. Like
Oh,
I go back,
really?
yeah, it kills me. Every like essay you had to write in English would be Hitchcock, all the way up to I think my first year of college.
Who was in Rear Window? I never saw that one.
Oh, Grace Kelly and Jimmy Stewart,
Oh, okay. Okay.
and she is just, I mean, she's just stunning,
She's
right? So she's
stunning.
just,
Yeah, yeah,
oh, ridiculous and so glamorous in this. And then he's got because the deal is he's in a full leg cast,
yeah. Mhm.
and he's a newspaper photographer, and so he's got like a healthcare worker that comes in, and that's played by this really brilliant character actress named Thelma Ritter, who's
Mhm.
just hilarious. It's just all perfect, and Raymond Chandler's the bad guy. It's just all good.
And how old were you when you first saw Psycho and the Birds.
Well, those were on TV, right? So those, I
Oh,
don't know,
okay.
those, yeah, they would just pop up and you would, maybe stop and watch or not. But they just never worked for me. Like
Oh, really? They were well. They're kind of like the big ones, aren't they? That everyone
they're the one that
about.
everyone knows. Yeah.
Yeah, but there's some other because I was telling someone a while ago when I did my film studies course as a teenager, BTEC Media Studies. We had a whole term of doing Alfred Hitchcock
Did you?
films. Yeah, yeah, and then so the whole term for it was film theory. So we studied nothing but Hitchcock, which meant, and everyone used to say, "Oh, you film students, all you do is sit around and watch film." I was like,
Well,
"No,
yeah, that's our job.
I know," but then also we do have to actually write essays and stuff. So it's not
No,
like
that's true.
because we have to think about all the codes of convention and mise en scène and all that kind of stuff, and so we got to see quite a few of them. I think we saw Strangers on the Train.
Oh, fab.
That's a really good one. I mean, I remember it being good. It's been a long time since I've seen it, but I do remember it being very suspenseful, which he was
Yeah, yeah,
very
yeah,
known
yeah.
for. And obviously the obvious ones like The Birds and Psycho. What was the other one? There was another one.
Is he
Oh,
notorious?
North by North.
North by Northwest.
Yeah, that was really good. That's really good.
Yes.
Um, so and there were a few that we could see by ourselves, at home and stuff. But I think they were like the big ones, weren't they? They're the ones that most people sort of really paid attention to, and
Right, the 50s era.
yeah. Um, but I always kind of envy people that managed to see Psycho and the Birds in the cinema. I mean, that must have been an amazing experience, and I guess North by Northwest would have been as well, wouldn't it?
Yeah, yeah,
On
yeah.
the big
I think
screen.
because they're so big and beautiful. Yeah. I mean, even one of my very favorites now is Notorious,
Okay.
which is Cary Grant and Ingrid Bergman. And did I say Raymond Chandler before? I think I did. The author. No, I meant the bad guy in Rear Window is Raymond
Oh,
Burr.
oh, okay, okay. Don't
um,
worry.
but yeah, I mean, because his films are so masterful. Like the shots are so beautifully choreographed. Seeing any of them in the theater is just such a different experience.
Yeah,
And when he released Psycho, that was all his own money. No one wanted to make it, and
yeah.
he insisted that no one could leave the theater. No one could come in late, and you couldn't leave before it was over. So they would like lock the doors. It
Oh,
was quite a
really?
thing.
It's
Yeah,
a
yeah,
bit like
yeah.
a Tarantino type thing, isn't it? Like you hear about how at previews,
He
like
was, yeah,
they
yeah,
wait
for sure.
outside.
Hitchcock was a genius at marketing, an absolute genius at. I mean, if you think about it, he's been dead. He died in '89 or something, right?
Okay.
Or early '80s. But I mean, we know what he looks like. We know what he sounds like. He was a master at marketing.
He seemed like a bit of an actory person as well, didn't he? Like when he used to do the
Yeah.
kind of sort of trailers, quick, but they were quite
Yes.
long, weren't they? Like the one he did for Psycho, and he sort of gives like a story, and it's like this is the house.
Yeah.
And,
Exactly.
he
Exactly. Oh, you've seen it. That is a good trailer. I like that one.
yeah, but it's just like it's an unusual. We wouldn't see a trailer like that because he's actually kind of saying like, "Here is where this happened," and like this is the Bates Hotel, and you don't see trailers like that. But he's quite, yeah, he was quite actory as well, wasn't he? And he had a bit of a,
Definitely.
like you said, a sort of tongue-in-cheek type sense of humor.
Yeah, he
Um,
definitely liked to manipulate, and he
yeah.
loved. I mean, he definitely wanted to be out there. Yeah.
What was that film? They basically based on him and his wife in the sort of the making process of Psycho. That was with Helen Mirren and Anthony Hopkins.
That was called Hitch, I believe.
Okay.
And then there was another biopic that came out, I want to say around the same time, but Hitch was based kind of loosely on this book that this guy, Donald Sato wrote. He's written about quite a few directors, but it's a very, it's a very negative portrayal of Hitchcock, which, I don't know. I don't know what he did or didn't do. All
Yeah, yeah,
I'm
yeah.
judging him on is his filmmaking. But yeah, so that movie was based on the book Hitch by Sato.
Okay, because we hear stories, don't we, about how he tortured his. It's one of the sort of the notorious things, like he put Tippy Head. Is it Tippy Hedberg?
Tippi Hedren.
Hedren,
No, Hedren.
who's oh, I don't know, Melanie
Melanie Griffith's mom.
mom through absolute hell, didn't he? With
That's what she says, yeah.
that's what she says, and apparently oh god, who was the actress in Jamie Lee Curtis's mum? Janet Lee.
Janet Lee, yeah.
Janet Lee, yeah. Apparently she says so as well, because in that film of Anthony Hopkins and Dame Helen Mirren, where they're basically trying to get Psycho made out of their own money. They sold their own house, didn't they? I think
they mortgaged it,
yeah, which is a big gamble.
Yeah, huge. On a black and white movie in the middle of the 1960s, when people are just getting color TV, and who wants to go see a black and white movie?
Yeah,
yeah, it was a huge,
a big thing. But you kind of see, like, I mean, it was the, like the biopic type thing where Anthony Hopkins has this like ridiculous fat suit on, and all these prosthetics. I mean, it's absolutely amazing. And
he did look spot on.
He did, didn't it? And even she said she didn't recognize him at all. And it was quite hard after he took off all this stuff. And I was like, oh, this, who's this? Kind of thing. There's a scene in that film where you see sort of, him directing Scarlett Johansson, who's playing Janet Lee, literally putting her through kind of, her paces and, scaring the crap out of her. I think he was quite hands-on, wasn't he? And
yeah, I think he was when he wanted particular performance. But funny enough, Janet wrote a book called Psycho, and it's her experience making the film, and she's rather kind about it, or if I remember right, I mean, I read it a couple of years ago, but her experience was like she found it rewarding. So even though it was difficult, and lying on the floor, I think she said lying on that floor, trying not to move in that weird position after she's done, after she's dead.
Yeah.
She said that was the most difficult. And it was something like a week in the shower, so she was
really
just wet and wrinkly all yeah.
Oh,
but
God.
she speaks, she writes with a lot of reverence. So the only person that I can find who complains about Hitchcock in terms of a sexual way is Tippi Hedren.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Now, Julie Andrews wasn't a huge fan, nor was he one of her. She did a movie with Sean Connery called Marnie, which is a Hitchcock movie. And she, I don't think it was a love affair between them at all. But she doesn't complain. And it's weird to me that all of his actresses, like Grace Kelly was in numerous films. Ingrid Bergman was in numerous films. These were his go-to actresses before they, left for private reasons. Before they left him for private reasons. So it's just weird to me that. But again,
this is speculation.
It's exactly.
Yeah. At that time, weren't actors basically, they were contracted by the studios to do so many films? Is that how it worked at the time?
No, by the time Hitchcock came to America, the golden age, the quote unquote golden age of Hollywood was already starting to change, and actors being owned by particular studios was ending. So his first film in the States was Rebecca. I want to say that was like 40 or 42. But we're, and then by the time we get to the 50s, we're well out of that old school style of contracting actors for a long time.
Yeah, that seemed quite stressful. There were a lot of, like, you hear a lot of stories about how, they didn't want to do it, but they had to because that was part of the contract. I mean, that still sort of goes on now, doesn't it? But not so much, I think, with the studio and the actors, because now the actors have the agents, and the agents kind of do all of that.
The agents, yeah, it tends to be, that tends to be the problem now, is the agents creating blocks of talent and pitching that to the studio, so that you're stuck into a project that you may or may not be right for, but your agent wants to make money off of the whole package.
Yeah. it's a very sort of quite intriguing process, isn't it, when you think about it? I mean, I'll have to talk to an agent about it. Maybe I'm trying to get one of my agents on. They don't want to do it. but,
Yes, yes.
but it'd be interesting from that perspective as well, because how they go about the casting process, for instance, with so many actors on their books, and usually it goes down to just generally the way you look and how they can literally, like you said, block you, put you in for this role and this role. So yeah, no, that would be an interesting process for sure. So tell us a bit about your first film and afterwards, basically. What was the first film you made? Were they really dodgy student films?
Well, the first film I made was in grad school. So, and I watched a lot of student films because I wanted to know why do student films look and smell like student films? You know what I mean? Like there's just never a question that it's a student film. And I was, why is that? So I watched a lot of films. Honestly, I think a large part of that, believe it or not, is sound.
Okay.
People pay very little attention to their sound. And in the end, it's a subconscious thing, isn't it? Because you're seeing with your eyes, but you forget how important your ears are and what you're hearing. And
Yeah,
so
yeah.
when sound can easily take you out of the moment, you're not even sure why,
Mm.
right? So I'm hoping that Clay doesn't look like a dodgy student film. It was he's available on Amazon, by the way.
Okay.
Um,
I'll give that a watch. I'll watch it. I'll give it to you.
good. Um, it's It was a story about. So I came in San Diego, in particular, in when I grew up. The scene was very huge. So by scene, I mean there were lots of mods, there were lots of rockabillys, there were lots of goths. There was like it was very important to be a part of the scene, and
Hmm.
we were very well read, and it wasn't just like a haphazard thing. It was studied. It was like a big cultural revolution, and so part of that scene were skinheads and scooter people.
Oh, really?
Yes, and
Were
I
you
had
one of
always
them?
been. I was not a skinhead. I was more on the goth side.
Oh, really?
Yeah. But scooters were very important, and all of that was very important. So my first film I wrote about a guy who's in a ska band who has to who's about to he's supposed to start life. He's supposed to be getting a job and getting into that, but his band's got a big tour coming. And so his girlfriend's father is offering him a job, and he's got to decide, does he take that job to make his girlfriend happy and start that career, or does he go on tour with his band? And that was my first film, which I think it was. And by the way, I was the last crew, I think, before 9/11 to shoot in Sears Tower.
Oh,
We shot on the
really?
99th floor. Yeah,
In
it was
one of
great.
the
That was his
towers?
office. In
Wow.
Sears Tower, not in one of the,
Oh,
not
Twin
in
Towers.
the. Yeah, that's New York. We shot in Sears Tower, which
Oh, okay.
was
Sorry.
that was the tallest building in the world for until Singapore did built something.
Oh, okay.
But so yeah, that was my first film, which I like. It's shot on film, which is great.
How old were you when you
Uh,
made that film? Do you remember?
um, Gosh, maybe like 20, 25, maybe.
Okay.
And then I brought it back. I didn't finish the. I didn't finish it until I got back and I was at MGM, and that was when I had then learned about sound and audio. So it's got like a 5:1 mix, and I was making DVDs for MGM, so it's a DVD in a complete package. I have literally, I think, 1,000 DVDs.
Oh, really?
So yeah, someone please fucking buy it. God damn it.
Oh, dear. Um, so you mentioned that your mom is a big film fan. What kind of films did she used to love watching?
Anything.
Virtually
Literally, she
anything.
she was yeah, she was queen of inappropriate as well. So
Oh, really?
she would take yeah, she would take me to. I remember seeing. I don't know if you know these films. There was like these series of disaster movies.
I know of
So
them. I remember seeing Earthquake and like the
yeah,
Poseidon. Yeah, like those sort of.
exactly like
Yeah.
those. But there was a series that came out about airplanes.
Okay.
So
Okay.
airport, I think Airport was the first one, or 760, whatever the hell they were called. But
Yeah. Yeah.
my mom would take me to those, and I remember the one that like killed me. The plane crashes and it crashes into the ocean, and now they've sunk. So now there's the pressure of the ocean, and they don't know how to get them out. And if they open the doors, it will depressurize it,
Yeah.
whatever the hell
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
story was. But one of the women there was this old, beautiful older woman, a black actress, and her name was Dorothy. And she looked to me about the age of my grandmother, whose name was Dorothy.
Mm.
And Dorothy gets hit in the head with something, and she's not doing well, and she dies, and I was just hysterical.
Really.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, I don't know how old I was, but I was a little kid, and you just think like, what the hell were you thinking, bringing me to that?
Yeah.
First of all,
That's
whether or not
traumatic.
someone's named Dorothy, yeah, I mean, god damn. But the first movie she took me to, I was still in it was a drive-in, and I was brand new, and it was A Lion in Winter. Have you seen that one?
No.
Again, it's Sir Anthony Hopkins.
Okay.
It's one of his early films, and it's about Richard the Lionheart. So he's played by Peter O'Toole,
Mm-hmm.
and the Queen is Katharine Hepburn, and um, Anthony Hopkins plays, I think he plays the middle son. Um, but I mean, it is, if you haven't seen it, man,
Really?
especially if you love acting, it is just Katharine Hepburn and Peter O'Toole. When they get into a fight, you're just like, oh,
Yeah.
damn,
Well, they're all very good actors, aren't they?
insane,
So.
absolutely insane. I want to say Timothy Dalton's one of the sons as
Oh,
well.
really?
Yeah, I mean, it's an amazing, stellar cast.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a
Yeah.
really, really great film. So that I always claim is the first film I ever saw.
Were you working on anything when any of the lockdown, well, especially when the first lockdown hit?
No, I
Okay.
wasn't actually. But what the lockdown for us here in London, at least, was kind of well, I also teach at Ravensbourne, so I got a lot more teaching, so that helped me. And I know that there was no help at all for freelancers. It was absolutely criminal. It was really
Mm.
bad. But what started to happen was it inspired, right? So I have a very good friend, an old friend who's an amazing choreographer in Berlin, and we came up with this idea to do a fashion show in the middle of a street in London, because never will it be
No,
dead quiet like
abandon
that.
her. Yeah.
Yeah. So sadly, we almost got that, but it didn't quite push through. Instead, there was another producing job came through, and got some amazing footage because the city was dead. It was just the coolest, kind of creepiest thing ever. But what it did inspire was I also do voiceovers,
Okay.
and my agent has an amazing group of talent on her books, and I was like, listen, Zoom, what if we start? So we did. We started making podcasts, but they're not like traditional podcasts. They're really radio dramas.
Okay.
So we cast. I got a friend of mine who's a producer. I pitched it to him, and he was like, "Yeah, I love it."
Mm.
And he's big into horror, so as a genre. So our first two dramas were stuff that was copyright free, out of protection, and like old timey horror stuff.
Yeah.
So we did Lost Hearts and um, well, Lost Hearts was the last one we did, which I think is really, really good. And we did those under Horror Lab Oral.
Okay.
So look them up, everyone. They're good. But it was just so much fun. And all of the actors were super into it. Obviously, no one got paid. We did it on Zoom, and we recorded the audio on Clean Feed. And they're really good. I really, really, really like them. And our
Yeah.
engineer is awesome. So we did, and just everyone was so keen to do something,
Yeah.
right? I mean, we were so tired of just being at home in our pajamas, and it was an opportunity to be creative. And fortunately, a producer who's now launching an app picked us up and hired us, the team. So John Paul Chappell, the producer, and Jason Reed, the sound engineer, he hired us to do podcasts for him, again, radio dramas for him.
Mm.
So we've done quite a few. We're about to start a 4-part series on the Battle of Trafalgar. So that'll be
Okay, that
interesting.
was really interesting.
Yeah, cast of thousands. So it'll be one of those, you'll see the Zoom, it'll be like 800 little pictures.
It'll be like, you know what's funny about Zoom? I think it, like, after a while, people were sort of thinking, what does this remind me of? What does this remind me of? And then there was this funny thing on the internet, and they said the Muppets. You know?
Oh, yeah. No, I've seen that.
Yeah.
Someone sent me that, and I forgot all about that. Yes, and they're all doing little things in their windows. Yes. The Muppets were so good.
They were good, weren't they? They're so entertaining.
Yes.
And you used to get a lot of those sort of famous movie stars going every when it was on the weekly basis. You used to get like loads of famous
amazing
people.
Everyone was on the Muppets. They got the most amazing people on there. I mean,
Elton John was on it once, wasn't he?
Yes. Oh, yes, he was. Totally was. Who's a really, really big one? I want to say Peter O'Toole was on.
I know Rita Moreno was on it, and
oh yes, she was for sure.
And she's a brilliant singer anyway, but she's naturally, she sings. Pierce Brosnan.
Was he on?
Yeah, but on the sort of the newer ones.
Okay, I was going to say, yeah.
I remember when in the 90s they sort of brought it out for a little short stint, and they had a few of the sort of famous movie stars at the time, and he was then Bond, so he was a big. I mean, he's still a big deal, but he wasn't. He was a lot famous then, a lot more,
Yeah.
So they had the big ones in. I can't remember who the other ones were because it was such a long time ago.
I'm sure you could just say someone and they would have been on. I mean,
yeah.
Like, it was just
that must be really hard for them to get them on, but I imagine that would have been a really prime time show in order for these big time celebs to come up. Do you know what I mean? To attract
the
them.
Muppets when I was little was on. It was huge. It was on right at prime time. It was 8 o'clock, which is like right. So TV would go. You would have news from 6 to 7, and then 7 to 8 were like kind of maybe game shows or whatever, and then 8 o'clock was prime time, right? So Muppets were prime time, man.
Yeah,
that was the big deal.
Yeah,
and Prince was on. I remember Prince being on. Yeah.
My God, I remember it wasn't the Muppets, but I do remember Stevie Wonder being on Sesame Street, which is like still the Jim Henson. They're all his creation.
It's all his world.
Yeah. So but yeah, no, that must have been a really good. Was that when all the sort of stars at the time were promoting a film? I guess that would have been one of these shows to go on to sort of promote.
Yeah, for sure.
Or song or
for
album.
Sure. And just for the fun of it, I think too.
It was really great fun.
It seemed like everyone was having a blast, which I thought was really awesome.
And it was a good sort of family show, wasn't it? You don't really get any of those shows now.
No, that everyone could watch, because you had I can't remember their names, the two old guys.
They were my funny. I like those ones. Yeah, the ones
right.
The sort of shouting out things in the theatre.
Yeah. What are their names? Oh, it'll come to me later. But yeah, I loved those guys, right?
Did you like Beaker and
one of my very favorites, and the Swedish Chef?
No, I was gonna say he's my favorite. You're
so hilarious. And Animal, I loved Animal.
Yeah, Animal was good. He kind of scared me as a kid. Animal, I don't know.
Did he?
Well,
I can see that.
Strange. I know. I'm thinking of the other one that was in the dustbin. Sorry, I'm getting confused.
Oh, Grover.
Yeah, sorry, I was getting confused. Yeah, the scary one in the dustbin.
The Grouch. Yeah.
Yeah, he scared me.
Yeah, fair. I think that's fair.
Oh, and actually, here's a good take on film sort of type parody. Switching over, did you? I'm not sure if he was ever in the Muppets, but he was definitely in a lot of the Sesame Street sort of skits. The Count.
Oh, he's so good. He was so good.
I love that they brought a really famous kind of horror figure from mainstream film into a children's TV show. And he's literally
to learn how to count.
Counting.
Yes.
1 up.
Oh.
Oh.
poo. I remember he did one once. He tried to count once with a cook. Like this one, just I thought was hilarious. He was counting, and he was counting cookies, and he's trying to count the cookies, and the Cookie Monster came and
Oh, the
ate them
Cookie
all.
Monsters, yeah.
Yeah,
Or was he just
and then he
eating
was
them
just
all,
left.
is he?
Yeah, he was eating, and then the count was just like, oh, no cookies.
Yeah, that was quite a genius thing to do, wasn't it? To bring a sort of famous horror sort of character that's been done by many famous celebs. Can you name a few of the celebs that actors that were portraying the Count Dracula, sort of, the phenomenon? Who
Most
was
famous would be Bela Lugosi, right?
Bela Lugosi? Yeah.
And then there's a very famous. I don't know if you know Blaxploitation as a drama. I mean, as a genre.
No. But tell us.
So Blaxploitation was a movement of films that started with Melvin Van Peebles' movie. It's a horrible title, Sweet Sweet Ass's Bad Song, and that was the very first Blaxploitation movie. And so the idea was movies by black folk for black folk, and you would see they were kind of like a little bit of kung fu meets a little bit of gangster movie meets a little bit of you know whatever. Great soundtracks in all of them. Isaac Hayes did a bunch of them,
Mm.
but they did one movie called Blackula,
Oh,
which is
really?
actually which is actually really pretty good. I quite liked it.
Good.
I just watched it again recently. Yeah. Um, some good political interesting statements in that. So yes, and I can't remember his name who played Blackula. Um, but we've got well, even Tom Cruise played a vampire,
Yes.
and Brad Pitt, and
Okay. Who
George
was?
Harris,
Sorry,
George Hamilton. George Hamilton was
George Hamilton.
he. Do you remember him? He was always very tan.
Yes, yes. He was well known
He
for that, wasn't he?
Yes, and I think his very first one was Love at First Bite. Is that right?
I don't know. I
I think
know.
that was his.
I mean, there've been parodies of it. I mean, who was the very original one in Nosferatu? Do we know what his name was?
Oh, I don't know that we know who that actor is, but there's a really great film on the making of
Hmm.
Nosferatu starring William Dafoe. It's it's a must see, really good
Oh,
film.
really? Is that
Yeah, yeah,
is
yeah.
that sort of basically the kind of the making of it with William Dafoe starring as him?
Yeah, exactly, exactly. It's a
I
bit
don't know
like
this
we were.
film. I have to watch it. Is he
It's
kind of
really
playing
good.
Nosferatu? But then, so he's playing the actor. He's an
Who
actor
played the
playing the character being filmed. So it's kind of like,
Yes,
yeah,
yeah. Which
yeah.
and that's a brilliant film. But you're right. That's the first whoever that dude was. That's a great film. Isn't
I
it
have to
beautiful?
watch it. That sounds really interesting because that was the film that basically started it all off, wasn't it? Because that was the very first vampire Dracula film.
I
But
think
then
it.
a
I
silent
think it was.
era too.
But the sad thing is, well, we don't really know because so many early films before they were what we would call feature length have been
Mm.
lost. They were just little one reels or two reels
Oh, really?
films. Yeah, and so a lot of and all of this right is based on Bram Stoker's book. So that book had been popular for a long time.
Yeah.
But everything in early film, everything now is just these stories being retold, isn't it? So
Yeah, well, it's kind of like and I've spoken about this before, Little Women or like Batman. It kind of, I think they try and sort of brand it differently in a different time period, so it kind of says something about society at the time then, and then a new one comes along, and that's the modern version. And you're like, why do they keep remaking this again and again and
yes,
again? It's just like
yes.
we've had enough.
Exactly. Exactly.
um, I
So
mean,
true.
there was something you said, and actually, I found that quite interesting when you were saying about the exploitation films.
Blaxploitation.
Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah, phase. So during that part, and actually it clicked into my mind, and I'm just wondering if you know anything about this. So there was that awful period of time when many states in America were segregated, weren't they? So I mean, this was going back a long time ago. I mean, it's
Sadly,
not.
not that long ago.
No, no, but I mean, you think about it. I mean, we really haven't progressed at all, have we? Really? But that's like a whole
No,
political thing. That's like, that's a different show. But
right.
but then would they? And actually, it never occurred to me that would they've had cinemas, especially for black people, because they wouldn't have been able to go into normal quote cinemas with white people. Would that have happened?
Yes, yes, and a lot of showing films in churches, a lot of showing films in community centers. So
Okay.
yeah, absolutely.
So, okay, so that's what they used to do then. Then obviously they didn't have their own cinema, but they used to bring it in to them in a sort of community basis, like of the church or.
Absolutely. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Absolutely. They've been
So would,
going on forever.
oh, really? So would they make them especially for them then? I guess there'll be lots of black actors then.
Yes, yes.
Yeah,
I
yeah, yeah.
mean, there really was, it wasn't huge, but there really, since the beginning of film, have been black filmmakers making films specifically for their community.
That's really
Um,
interesting.
yeah, yeah,
We
yeah.
don't see that, do we? Why is that?
No. Well, I think it's twofold. I think one, people watching older films, I had a student at Ravensbourne, so I teach film at Ravensbourne. I
Hmm.
had a student literally tell me that he didn't watch any film older than, what did he say, uh 2019 or 20, no, excuse me, 2005 or something. I was like,
Hmm.
what do you mean you don't watch anything older than 2005? He's like, yeah, no, no, I don't.
Really?
I'm like,
That's not that
yeah.
long ago either when you think.
No, exactly. So, no, clearly an ignorant person who's probably not working in the industry.
Yeah.
But, but that said, I mean, I do think it is hard to watch unless you love it, unless you can get around it. It's hard to watch early films. Um, they come off as a little more stilted. They can sometimes look funny. The movements look funny. I mean, maybe that's why in part, but
Yeah.
I think
It's a
too
bit like
it's
a time capsule as well, isn't it? Like I spoke about this top.
absolutely.
And so sometimes it really doesn't age well. It's like it goes off like milk. It doesn't go.
Well, no,
Do
but
you know what I
that
mean?
said, if you can see Cabin in the Sky, which I think is available on YouTube for free, there's one of the there was a whole um there were several filmmakers that were actually making money doing all black films, and Hollywood went, "Oh, wait, what? Oh, we can make some money." So they started doing all black films. So movies like Cabin in the Sky, which is where Lena Horne sings um oh my God, her famous song. I'm gonna blank on it, but it's brilliant. It's
Yeah,
beautiful. It's a
yeah.
gorgeous movie, and so it's just, I think it's part of that myth that we have that Hollywood was only ever white male. That was the most popular, and that's this. But
Yeah.
there has always been black film. It just
We
hasn't
never
gotten them.
we never got the exposure to see it really, which is really
Exactly.
sad, I think.
Absolutely.
Because I would really
Absolutely.
be interested in seeing the history of, what they saw, compared to what everyone else saw at the
Well,
time.
and even queer cinema as well.
Oh,
There's
yeah.
tons of queer cinema that we've never gotten to see because
That's a really good point because do you think now actually everyone's a lot more open-minded, like you have films made for the LGBTQ community, and so people are a lot more open-minded and we get to see it a bit more because they're sort of showing it more on these streaming channels and special places and festivals as well. But
yeah.
yeah, that's made me realize that actually back then that must have been going on as well, and obviously in that era, like homosexuality would have been a big taboo, wouldn't it? So
Well, illegal, yeah.
yeah. So I mean, where would they have shown those films for them? They'd have to be very discreet, I'd imagine, because
Yeah,
you've got.
because it's illegal and you'll be arrested.
Well, yeah, I mean, for the black people, yes, they were being persecuted and all this horrible stuff, but at the same time, they weren't doing anything wrong. Do you know what I mean? In their
Yeah.
eyes, I'm not saying, obviously, that's not what I'm saying, but then that would have had to be very kind of like, kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah. It was definitely for queer cinema. to be fair, I don't know as much
No.
about it, but it would have been, bars, underground bars, that kind of thing. I think
Yeah.
even when Kenneth Anger, who's a very famous queer filmmaker, I like his stuff. Maybe got into a couple of galleries, but it was all underground
Yeah.
kind of.
So we'll never get to see the stuff, will we? Is it all kind of tucked away?
No, we can totally. It's just about being curious and going and finding it.
Yeah,
Absolutely, just
going
it's
to places.
all available.
Mm. It's just it's all
Go
kind of
no go.
underground, isn't it? Like not underground, but like you said, it's sort of in the archives, and they know how to get to it. But if you're outside the circle, you wouldn't know how to get to it. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? You need to have
yeah,
to
no,
be.
exactly. Exactly. I think that's right. I think that's right. Yeah, I mean, I think you're right. I don't think folk know that there are early black films, or that folk know that there are queer films that haven't seen the light of day. And
Yeah, I wonder if in that era, then there would have been for the community, the black community, if there would have been any like really famous in their eyes, black filmmakers, actors, for instance, for them that we never knew of because we never got to see.
that's a good question.
Yeah, like
My
do you remember when that?
yeah.
I'm just thinking when when that film came out, and it was based on the real lady who was really really clever. She worked for the NASA program, and then they did Hidden
Oh,
Figures.
yes, yeah.
That's kind of like a prime example, isn't it, of how these women. So there was like at the time that was when the segregation was really bad, and they were like, we never knew that part of NASA was black women who were coming up with all the arithmetic and the maths to send these astronauts into space. And
Yeah,
that
yeah,
was,
yeah.
and I can't remember her name. She's a real person. She passed away not like a few years
Yeah,
ago.
just a couple, like last year or something, wasn't
Yeah,
it?
and she got
Yeah.
like she got her recognition after so many times. Got
Yeah, didn't they
She was
name?
amazing, and we're like, why
Yeah.
didn't we know about this person till now?
Yeah, yeah. Well, double strike against her, wasn't it? She was black and she was a woman.
Yeah. And that film really shows how hard it must have been for her especially, because she was working in this really tight knit, and they completely, just like you should sit over there. They don't want to share the same toilet. They don't want to do. And you think
Yeah.
we're so lucky we don't have to go through this, because can you imagine running so far to go just to use the
To go
toilet?
to the bathroom, yeah, no, I
Yeah,
know. But I mean, even today, I mean, I can only speak to my experience, right? But
yeah,
even today, it's all of those stereotypes, you know, persist. So, if when you're directing, you're meant to be, you're the leader, you're the commander, and everyone underneath you are soldiers that have to work to a shared purpose, the
mm,
purpose that you put forward as the commander. But yet that kind of personality, or that kind of behavior, is frowned upon for women, right? We're not
yeah,
supposed to be opinionated. We're not supposed to be controlling or bossy, and
no,
when we are, we're called bossy, or we're
yeah,
called controlling, or we're called a bitch, instead of, wow, she's a really good leader.
mm.
So I mean, yeah, it's tricky.
Yeah. That's why I'm just wondering if, for instance, in like you said, there was at that time they would have made films for black people because of all the segregation and all that stuff, that horrible stuff that was going on in America. I mean, it still goes on now, I'm sure. Um, but I wonder for them if there was like at the time there was the sort of famous movies, sort of like the kind of the Grace Kelly of their
Yeah,
community, and like the big ones, the heartthrobs and
yeah, yeah. No, I know exactly what you mean. But I wonder, because there wasn't, it wasn't. We forget that we live in this world now where everything's available to us instantly,
mm,
and communication is so quick and easy.
yeah,
It would be interesting. I mean, I think that's a really fascinating question. Was there someone who everyone knew because
yeah,
that film was shown on the underground across the South or whatever? That's an interesting question. I bet you someone knows. I'm
yeah.
positive.
I'll look it up.
Okay. All
Did you
right.
ever
To
see?
be continued.
Yes, exactly. Did you dot 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 dot? Did you ever see? I haven't got around to watch it, but there was a documentary about that. And he's so clever and articulate. James Baldwin, is it? I'm not your
Oh
Negro.
yes, yes,
Did you
yes.
ever see that? So I know Samuel
No, no.
Jackson narrates it, and it's basically on his a movement and the persecution he got. I mean, he was really clever, and he also he had two double whammies. He was homosexual and he was black,
And as a
wasn't
black
he?
man, yeah,
So,
yeah.
but like super clever, and he was talking about how, you know, if a white man did this, they would never be frowned upon. If a black man came in, they would like shh, like that.
Yeah.
And it's a really interesting take. And then you have like during this film, and I've seen clips of it, and Samuel Jackson's spoken about it on a talk show. And they have snippets of really old footage of journalists. I mean, this was going way back, so it's all like the home videos going like it's all sort of skippy and black and white. Like, what do you think about black people living in the neighborhood? Oh, I think it's awful. Like it was that kind of very um it's just very outdated, but it was really wrong thinking. Do you know what I mean? And they were
Yeah, yeah.
completely against it. And then and Samuel Jackson was saying, well, you know what? I would have been a teenager when he knew about James Baldwin and when he saw all that horrible stuff that was going on, like these black communities being, bombed and, basically just treated really badly. Wasn't that long ago. So he wondered if they would have seen themselves as older people looking back at themselves as young people as well, because there were younger ones who were also doing it, thinking, oh, I was a total arsehole. But unfortunately, I don't think a lot of them would have, would they, really? They
I don't know. I don't know. It's an
It would have been
interesting
that would have been
question.
an interesting thing as well. Because when you look back at yourself, when you're 20, or for instance, you're like, oh god, you kind of cringe, and you're like, did I
Yeah.
really do that, or did I really think that? So, but then I think on that side, I mean, that's serious, so that must have been quite a sort of a wake up call, I would have imagined, to if they ever saw I'm Not Your Negro and seen a flashback of themselves as, a young person talking about
As a
how,
racist young person,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, exactly.
I
So,
would hope so, but who knows, right? Who
yeah.
knows?
Did you ever see that documentary?
No, not yet. It's definitely on my list.
Yeah, no, I have to watch it. I mean, it's definitely a thing you need to sort of be ready to watch. It's not like an
Yeah.
easygoing thing to watch.
I'm in the middle of the Jeffrey Epstein doc.
Oh, are
So
you?
yeah.
Okay.
I'll finish that one and then I'll
Well, that's going to be a bit of a. You need to take a big breath for that one, don't you?
yeah, for sure. For sure. That one's crazy. But that's an interesting point, like that he got away with all that.
Yeah.
You just think, what the hell? If anyone else had done that, if a black man had done that, forget it. Well, then we think about R. Kelly. I don't know.
Well, I think it varies, doesn't it? And to be honest, I think if you have the money and the power,
Yeah.
that's why. So people like R. Kelly, he did get away with it for a long time.
Yes.
So I think unfortunately, there are people that abuse their power. I mean, look at Harvey Weinstein, and
Yes.
I mean, actually, that's quite a good question because you're a woman, and I haven't spoken to many female filmmakers. So that's another question I'll ask in a bit. But what did that make you think when all that came out? I mean, he was the big boss behind it all. He was one of the major sort of figures for the Weinstein Company, so which was one of the biggest studios, and he was like, he was just like everyone knew him. At the Oscars, he would be the first person. He was just basically the big boss of Hollywood. And what did you think about when all these allegations and the Me Too sort of finally sort of broke out? Was it
Well,
shocking to you?
no,
No,
I don't think any woman was shocked.
no,
I don't think any woman who hasn't lived in a cave was shocked.
no.
I will say that the hashtag Me Too movement was shocking in the sense of I don't think there's anyone who couldn't have written #MeToo, and just the numbers were like, oh, Christ,
I know.
just
Yeah.
jaw dropping. So, I mean, I wonder about Weinstein if he was any worse than producers we know to have been similar in the past. I don't, was he the very worst? Was he?
Well, we won't know. I'm
No.
sure there's a lot of them.
Yeah.
That's sort of like been, you could go back to like Jimmy Savile and that, people covering up for them really because of who they are.
Exactly. I mean, well, how did Bill Cosby get away with it?
Yeah, exactly. That's another one.
So long and so, I mean, just as disgusting and gross as what Weinstein did. Just absolutely.
No, of course. And I remember, I mean, there are men I've come across a couple and they really upset me, to be honest. I had to stop talking to them because from their perspective, they think, I think, these women are making it up.
Yeah.
And that really,
there's hundreds. There's hundreds.
That upsets me as a woman, and it would upset you, wouldn't it? And like, but
yes,
look at this number of women that have gone up. So it's not like one or two. I mean, obviously you're going to get a few that just want, like the attention in the press and that. But it's been like a resounding number of women, and they still think that actually, no, it's the woman's fault. What was she doing going there? And it's like, it's not a small hotel room. It was a massive suite.
It was a suite.
Yeah, and a lot of them did their business from there, didn't they? Because that's
absolutely
work.
Absolutely. Yeah, the whole thing makes me sick. Any of that stuff makes me sick. I was even having a conversation with two female, very intelligent female, and they were like, I don't understand how these 17-year-old girls would do this. And I was like, well, it doesn't matter if you understand or not, but really, so clearly you wouldn't have been that 17-year-old girl, but and that's why I actually started watching the documentary, and it shows he was actually really good. The two of them are really good at finding women who were particularly vulnerable, who had been abused, who were, who didn't have backing or most of them, right? Or didn't have support or whatever the case. But it blows my mind if you think about the fact that it was going on for so long. There were a few brave women who, and no tea on anyone else, but there were a few women who stood up and said no and got so much abuse for it.
And ostracized and shut down.
Yeah, absolutely. And what was, I think it was Hollywood versus Women, or Women versus Hollywood, which is a great book. If you've not read that, it's really, really good. I believe it's in here. She talks about Weinstein in particular and says, yes, in Hollywood, if you don't understand this, audience, people do lots and lots and lots of meetings in hotel rooms. It is standard. Number one. Number two, if you're an actress or an actor and Harvey calls you, you go.
Go, yeah.
Or you don't work. I mean, it's not, it's not hard to now that we know, to point to the actresses whose careers were totally annihilated.
Yeah.
No, I was going
to say that just because they wouldn't do what he wanted them to do.
Yeah.
And that's scary because you think, like you said, the 17-year-old girls, 17, 20, you're still very impressionable.
Stupid.
Yeah, exactly. And you don't know who you are. You don't know what you want from the world. You're trying to figure out, your place, and you're becoming an adult. So really in your 20s as well, you're still basically a teenager as well.
Yes.
And so for people to turn around and say it's the woman's fault. Well, no, they're like, it's his fault because he's a grown man. He should know better. He knows what he's doing, and he's doing it. And obviously, I mean, you'd be petrified if it was your first time and you think, and you're 20 and you're completely naive and impressionable, and you think, this famous person, this big guy wants to see me. Oh my God, this is so exciting. And then he could easily just say, well, if you don't do this, I can just easily find someone else. And that would be terrifying for you because you're that close to getting your dream job. And then having someone sort of just, blacklist you and take it all away from you. And like no one
Yes.
would want to. And that has happened, hasn't it?
Oh, absolutely it has. And if you think about these are powerful men, like, and our society, Western society, absolutely um, touts the importance of powerful men and stuff and big places and and these men had that, huge, beautiful hotel suites
Yeah.
and whatever you want and Epstein's gorgeous estates. And how do you walk into that as a 17, 20-year-old and not be absolutely floored and like,
Flabbergasted.
yeah, and clearly he's doing something right because he's got all this success. And
Yeah.
if I listen to him and do what he wants, I might have some too.
Yeah.
I mean,
But they're very
I don't,
persuasive, aren't they? I mean, they're
yes.
basically kind of grooming the people. Not so much that, yes, they're victims, yes, but then also the people that work for them. They're kind of, they're sort of think this person's amazing because that's the impression they give them. So in a way, they're kind of being. And you hear about things like, how Michael Jackson, in a way, kind of groomed the family. Really, he was in that situation. I mean, that's another sort of difficult situation.
No, that's a good point because it's these people, Bill Cosby as well, that have just stardom all over them, and when the parents meet them, these are big deals. This is
Yeah,
like stars in the eyes, big deals, and then so of course you're going to trust your daughter or your son or whatever
yeah,
around these people because oh my god,
yeah, yeah. And you're well
and they
known, so
told
you must be safe and moral, and you've
yeah.
got your own kids for a lot of them. I mean, Weinstein had kids, and do you know what I mean? All these people have kids, so it's
Can
like
you
a
imagine if
secret.
he was your dad?
Yeah.
Ooh,
Oh,
that's
oh
an
man.
awkward. Yeah, you change your name immediately.
Did she do that? His wife? I
Oh
know
no,
she divorced him right away, but
she that's his. I think that was his second wife.
yeah,
I
she was a
think,
lot younger than him, and she was
of course,
stunning. I don't know. I mean, that must have had to do I know a lot to,
money.
unfortunately. So that's kind of the flip side of it, really, isn't it? But
Yeah,
um,
but I think we really do as a society. I think we all need to get out of this mindset of. I think it has to be the victim. Believe the victim first and foremost.
yes,
Um, obviously it's innocent until proven guilty, but I think we can't we can't do this anymore. We can't have this society where men are so precious. Oh, I wore a skirt that was too short and you lost control. Oh, okay, I'll wear a
yeah,
longer
yeah.
like
It's like,
you
oh,
were
it's our fault for wearing a
yeah,
skirt.
yeah,
It's like,
no, it's
oh, I'm
just
sorry.
yeah, I'm sorry you're so weak
Yeah,
that you've been
yeah,
raised so poorly to think that you are entitled to my body as a result of your whatever. Like
yeah,
we have to stop. That has to go away. That just has to go away.
yeah.
I'm
But
hoping that oh go.
no, 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 no. Carry on, because what you're saying is interesting. Sorry.
I was just I'm hoping really that this new this era that we're moving into where we're talking about this more where we're um hopefully learning to have better conversations about this and providing opportunities for people who haven't had opportunities before. I'm hoping. Well, we're already seeing it, aren't we? Like Netflix is already showing. You've got Indian language films on. When could you have found an Indian language film before?
Hmm.
We're finding um, there's more opportunity for different voices to come and tell their stories, which I think is going to be magic.
Yeah, definitely.
More older people stories, more women stories, more people of color stories. All of those things are going to just, I think, enrich our society.
It's a very positive step, though. I think that's a really good thing, isn't it? Rather than being very kind of like youth orientated or like
Yeah, yeah,
you
yeah,
don't
yeah,
you it's quite interesting to see how people react because obviously we're being exposed to so much stuff, like this is what beauty should look like, this is
yeah.
they should be at this age, and then you see these females in their sort of above 30s going for like Botox and plastic surgery and stuff. And you think, what's wrong with aging? Because actually, you find that as women get older, and men as well, especially women, I think a lot more, they get more and more interesting as they get older, and they
I
have
agree.
so much more to say. Not so much as a young person, because you're still trying to figure out, you want all of this, you want all this kind of twinkly twinkly business. If that makes sense. But then obviously they don't sort of think about, actually, I'm interested in the actual content. I mean, they would, but do you know what I mean? They want more from what they're doing.
I totally agree with you.
Yeah.
I totally agree with you. I think, I was thinking about this a while ago. I was thinking about women like Helen Mirren or even Robin Wright. Do you know who that is? Right?
Yeah, she was in Forrest Gump.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
and she was in House of Cards as well.
Yeah.
She was also in Wonder Woman. She's got to be, I think she's 58.
She's stunning still.
She's ridiculous and kicked ass in Wonder Woman.
She's an amazing actor. Yeah.
She's absolutely brilliant. But we haven't really. These are like a new generation of older women showing us that there's no one way to age, which I think is really lovely, right? It's not the dowdy muumuu dress and the set hair anymore. It's whatever you want it to be.
Yeah. Sigourney Weaver.
Yes. Oh, amazing.
Is she still acting now?
Yeah, she's got a new film out. It's a new film out. It's about an organization in Chicago called, I want to say it's called Jane's House or something. It was kind of an underground railroad for abortions before Roe v. Wade. So it was, and I guess we'll have to start that up again. But yeah, so she's just in that, just aired, I want to say like last month.
Yeah.
And she got amazing reviews.
She's proven herself wrong, isn't she? As she's going on. I mean, obviously in the 90s, she was well known for being Ripley, but then obviously, as she's gotten older, like, she's done a lot of really very interesting films.
Yeah,
indie type films. It's not like big. She's done a few, but obviously, she's done a few more kind of sort of off the grid type things, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And that's what's kind of really proven her to be she is a very, very intelligent actress. She
really is.
Yeah.
She comes from her father was head of CBS for a long time, so she comes from money. She comes from the industry, but she absolutely does great. Have you seen Galaxy Quest?
No, I know of it. It's kind of like a parody, isn't it, on the actors playing
on Star Trek?
Yeah. And that Alan Rickman is like an alien or something. Yeah.
Alan Rickman I love Alan Rickman so much. He's so Alan Rickman, and it just is there anyone that can play bothered better than he can? Do you know what I mean? Like when he's bothered.
Do you know what's funny? I remember seeing an interview of him, and actually, I'll tell you a quick funny story. Not to sort of name drop, but I will sort of.
Go on, girl. Do it.
My younger sisters went to the same school as quite a few famous celebs used to go send their kids there. So it was Mick Jagger and Jerry Hall, and there's a few other ones, Pete Townsend, and there was a Sultan Prince who was like 8 years old.
Oh shit!
Yeah, ridiculous. So people were just like, la going to school. So as I was saying, and one of their friends was Rich D. Grant's daughter. I don't know if you know.
Okay.
He's a famous.
Yeah.
So they used to hang out quite a lot with their friend, his daughter. And he's actually a really lovely guy. He
seems so.
He's just a really genuine person. You just think, that's just his job. Do you know what I mean? But then other way, like you put your work hat off and take it on and put it off, and then he's just a dad, really. Do you think?
Yeah.
And he's a very good dad. So a really nice man. And I remember once they came back, and I mean, they were kids, and we're like, so what did you do today with your friends? And like, oh, we had lunch with Alan Rickman and Miranda, I can't remember her name, Richardson. Yeah. It's like la. But they would have been too young to realize, who any of these people were or no.
Yeah, on the
Um,
screen, yeah.
but I remember seeing. So that was one thing about Alan Rickman. But I remember seeing a documentary because he had a very distinctive voice, didn't he?
Yeah.
And he apparently said that when he started out, his drama teacher said he would never make it with this awful
Really?
voice that he had. But then he used to, like, it just became his singers, but like Christopher Walken, or these actors are well known for these amazing voices, really.
Exactly.
So when you say Alan Rickman, I just think, of this amazing voice. But yeah, and I immediately think of Hans Gruber again, because I talked about Die Hard so many times.
Right.
It's Hans Gruber. And actually, that was the first film he did, wasn't he? Because before he was all mostly theatre. He was a theatre actor, and that was quite a risky move.
Is that right?
Well, I think in the American mainstream, it was quite, because it was kind of his debut. Maybe look it up. He did a few TV stuff and things back here, I think, but he was predominantly a theatre actor. And then when they cast him, he was like kind of like an unknown, English actor playing a German guy or whatever. I think that's what they said.
Is that? I have to look it up now.
Yeah. Because I think the first Die Hard was kind of like on the minimal budget. And
1988. I think it was a pretty good budget. That was the Fox building as well.
Is that building still up, by the way? It is, isn't it?
It is, right? It is. It's obviously no longer Fox.
Have you ever been there?
Oh yeah, many times.
What was it called? What was it called then? The tower?
It was just called the Fox Tower, as I remember. Okay. But yeah, because it's in Century City, so that whole area. So back in the day, when the studios were big, before the collapse in the 50s, they had huge lots. So Fox, that was all Fox studio lots. It was huge. And after they made Cleopatra, they were in dire straits. So the head of the studios,
I heard about this, because it had a ridiculous budget, didn't it, Cleopatra? Didn't it?
It did. Yeah.
Is that what broke them, do you think?
It was, yeah. It broke them, and they sold off a lot of the land, and that's why it's called Century City, after 20th Century Fox.
Okay.
So in that, there's the tower and a parking garage, and then you walk past the tower and down, and then you go into what is the Fox lot now, which is still big, but it's a much, much, much smaller lot.
Yeah.
So tons of studios, but very small.
Yeah. Are you looking it up?
I did. So Alan's he was in some Shakespeare in '78 on BBC.
Yeah. In the theatre or
no, on
TV films.
On TV, yeah.
Okay.
Smiley's People, Busted. I don't know what Busted is.
He did do a thing where he played a ghost of
someone who's with Emma Thompson, right?
No, that was something else. It was with and it was a BBC drama series that came out, I remember. He was well known for. No, he was very well known. He was like a TV theatre actor back here. But I think that might have been kind of like his big breakthrough.
You're right. He definitely had done nothing that we saw in the States.
Yeah,
until Die Hard. So you're right. You're absolutely right. That's crazy.
Yeah. But he proved himself wrong, didn't he? I mean, he's an incredible.
Yes, he did.
Incredible actor. He was so good as the Sheriff of Nottingham in Robin.
Girl, totally agree. I totally agree. That is my favorite. I love Robin Hood with Kevin Costner because of Reichman. He is he is so shitty and so good.
But he's funny as well. He's like, I'll see you in Christmas.
Yeah. Oh, he's so Alan Rickman.
Mean and horrible to those women, but it's actually really funny.
Yes. So good. I'm so glad you said that. That's one of my very favorites. Only because of him.
The only good thing about that film.
Yeah. Oh yeah. But I mean, like, really good. Like, I could watch it again just for him.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
I'd sit
exactly.
through the whole thing, no problem, just for
Yeah,
him.
yeah. Because it really wasn't that good a film, really, was it? I mean, Kevin Costner's accent kept sort of going in and out, and then
And he was, I think, just a skosh too old for, like he was probably in his mid 40s or something, which is not
yeah.
kind of the Robin Hood age. And I didn't feel like that there was any chemical between him and Marion. Like it was
No, there
like,
was no chemistry, was there? Yes.
no, I wasn't rooting for them. No love, no. But anytime Ellen was on, I'm freaking there.
Yeah. And then you had Sean Connery playing the King of England, like with this strong Scottish
Oh, right.
Scottish accent. It was a Braveheart, wasn't he? He comes in from the war afterwards, and he's like the King of England. So really, he should have had like an English accent, and he comes with
Accent.
really strong Scottish accent going on the
Wait, no,
horse.
was that Braveheart or was that Robin Hood?
No, that was Robin Hood. He played. Hang
Okay.
on. He played the lion. Oh no, hang on. What was his called? So it was King Richard, but what was King Richard's sort of nickname? Was it the Lionheart or something like that?
Yeah.
King Richard Yeah, Lionheart. So he was Richard
Yeah.
the First of England. So he came back from fighting many years, and that's why I don't know. I don't know the history. Blah blah blah. But yeah, so I mean, he's a real person, but obviously they kind of did a fictionalized version of him in Robin Hood. But he comes on at the very end on his horse, and returning from
Ugh.
battle. It's been a long time since I've seen that film, but yeah, it was just a really strange casted. It wasn't that good.
No, no. And you know what? They don't even credit him in the movie.
Do they not?
No, it says Sean Connery, King Richard, uncredited.
Oh,
Yeah, that was just to get people excited, wasn't it?
yeah, I think so. And also, I think that this is where marketing comes in very useful,
Ex-
because another thing that made the film so big when really it wasn't that good a film. It's kind of like Titanic. Was the song, wasn't it? It was Bryan Adams.
Yeah,
That song was in the charts for like 3 months during the summer. It was all I ever heard, and
yeah, that's a good point. I forgot all about that horrible
yeah.
song.
So that would have,
Ugh,
and obviously the music video was sort of like bits of him singing, and then obviously bits of the film.
of
So
the
people
film,
are going
yeah.
to naturally think, "Oh, I'll go watch the film." It's a bit like Terminator when the Guns N' Roses made their music video for the second Terminator film.
Oh, right.
You will be mine. So yeah, actually that's quite clever, isn't it? How music and film is actually a very good way of marketing and bringing people in
Absolutely.
to watch things.
Absolutely. Yeah, yeah, yeah. It was a big, I mean, back to Blaxploitation, those soundtracks were huge. They
Really?
were, yeah, yeah, yeah. So, and I think, if I'm not mistaken, Isaac Hayes won an Oscar for Shaft, and that was the first time a black man had ever won an Oscar. Is that right? Maybe Quincy beat him. I could be
Hmm.
talking out of my. But Blaxploitation, we'll just cut that part out. But
Yeah,
Blaxploitation, their soundtracks were very, very important, and
really.
and were chart toppers for sure. It was all great, like
Yeah,
funk and good stuff.
yeah. And I guess also music that we wouldn't have been really exposed to as much at the time. Do you know what I mean?
Oh,
What?
I see, I see.
So I mean, there would have probably been like at the time music that we wouldn't have been hearing on the radio on a regular basis,
Well,
or
you guys would have, because you guys have always been
yeah, yeah,
lovers of black music from
and yeah,
America.
yeah. We do. We are. I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah,
I
yeah,
mean,
yeah, yeah.
how many
I
stars came
still listen
over?
to
And
Sha.
yes, yes. I mean, the tours that would come over here just make me so jealous that I
Oh,
wasn't
really?
alive. Yeah, I mean, I actually know a friend of mine. He was at Warner for a long time, and an older gentleman, but he would go to. He was telling me about these shows he went to in the day, which would, it was like Otis Redding with Aretha Franklin, and
Wow.
and you just go, oh, wow, what a great, all of those people together, what an amazing show.
Did you
Yeah.
actually that's really good. You brought me onto something. Did you ever see the film that Renee Zellweger did of Judy Garland?
I've not seen it yet. Did you?
Oh no, watch it. It's so good. No, she's really good in that. But actually, that's quite because she came over towards the end of her career when her career was going
Yes.
downhill. And I mean, this was when her life sort of kind of got quite bad, and she was doing. I mean, she always did the drugs, didn't she? I mean, she was
Yes.
really, and that was partly to do with the studio and her mother, and
It was all to do with the studio. Yeah.
awful, isn't it? When you think about how much control they would have had over her and anyone at the time. So they controlled what she ate, they controlled how
Hmm.
she looked, how she had to come across, all this sort of stuff. So obviously her career was going downhill, and she was kind of in the process of divorcing her husband at the time, who I think was like her daughter's who's her daughter?
Yeah. Manelli. Yeah.
Yeah, Liza
Liza.
Minnelli's and her brother. So this was the only way which she could sort of make her money again, and it was
Yeah.
because the English audiences loved her, and they invited her over to do a series of concerts, didn't they? And that's
Yes.
what the film is centered about. Is towards the later, you know, towards the end of her life, basically, when she was
Yeah.
doing
Yeah.
this. So that kind of doesn't surprise me that a lot of them would have come over here at some point to do just purely, concerts, for
Yeah.
instance.
Yeah. Yeah. Get some money back for sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So no, but that is a really interesting film. You should watch that. She's really good in that film.
Okay. A minute. She does. She's a pretty incredible actress, isn't she?
Yeah, I feel kind of bad for her because she, I think she kind of got a lot of flack at one point, didn't she? And people kind of,
It was the plastic surgery flack, you
I
mean?
think that's what it was. And then she
Yeah.
kind of went off and came back again. But really, she is actually a very good actress, and
Yeah.
people. I think that's what it is. They underestimated her. I think they just thought, oh, it's this. Not, she just looks like this, and she does this,
Which
and
is hilarious because if you think about her career, I mean, really powerful films pop to mind, right? Like Jerry
Mm.
Maguire is a great film. That was her breakout film.
That's the first film I saw of her when I was 16.
Yeah, I think that was her first. That was
It was.
definitely
It
her
was her.
first big
It,
role.
it was
Yeah,
her big film. Yeah.
and then the Bridget Joneses are great. I mean, the
Yeah,
first
I
couple
love
are
those films.
fab. She's
Um,
done she's done some really
she
good
did
stuff.
Cold Mountain, didn't she? I never saw that one with Jude Law, and that was kind of like a big epic period piece. I never saw that
Yeah,
one,
based
but
on the novel. Yeah, I've not seen that one. I read the book, but I've not seen the
yeah,
movie
she
yet.
was good in Chicago. I think she got
She was
quite
fabulous. That's right. She was fabulous in Chicago, I thought.
as Roxy, and actually, I remember
Yeah.
her saying that I think she got quite a lot of criticism for being cast as Roxy
I
because
think
I
she
think
did. I remember people were like, "What?" when she
yeah,
got
yeah,
cast.
like
But she was good. I thought she
she
was
was really
great.
good. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So she had to obviously have singing lessons and dance lessons for that. But I thought she sounded amazing in that film. And then when she did Judy Garland, she kind of had to do two things, didn't she? She had to learn to sing again and learn to sing like Judy Garland as well. So not only are you
Even
doing,
even harder.
you got to put on her voice on top of that, which is really hard.
Incredibly, because Judy Garland's an icon.
Yeah,
She's absolutely beloved to this day. So if you're going to step into those shoes, I mean, it would to me it's as it would be as scary as Jennifer doing Aretha Franklin. Like,
yeah,
can you imagine as an actress? I mean, tell me as an actress, if your agent called and said, "Listen, you're being considered to play one of the most amazing singers ever," you'd both pee on yourself
yeah,
and cry with happiness at the same time. You go, ah!
yeah.
It must imagine
Very
how daunting.
daunting. Yeah. But then you hear about, there've been other actors like when Gary Oldman. I mean, several actors have played Winston Churchill. I mean, that's
Zillions.
big, So that would have also been a scary one. So it must be really hard for actors not only to be playing another actor or another person,
Personality,
but,
yeah.
but but then also it's a very well known one in the public eye, and it's a real person as well. So they kind of like a fictionalized version of them. Sometimes it depends on the film, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Some of them like to be a bit more realistic and a bit more true to the person. And other times it's a bit more of a kind of fictionalized version. Like there's episodes that show with Matt LeBlanc.
Oh.
Where that was a really good show because he kind of set himself out to be, he's obviously not really that guy, but he's playing himself in a way.
Yeah. I have to tell you that show to me is amazing. I mean, it was
I
great.
like that show.
I love. First of all, I didn't know who Tasman was, or I'm gonna blank on his name. And I think
Steve Mungrel.
Yes,
Yes.
yes. Was super pleased to meet those actors, and also the blonde who
have you met them?
Played. No. Sorry, excuse me.
Okay,
to meet them in the sense of like see their work, because I had no idea. And the blonde woman who plays the she's in a smaller part, but she comes on. She's supposed to be the funny person, and they always run a joke by her, and she goes,
oh yeah.
and she's absolutely brilliant. Her show on BBC is unbelievable, or is it on? No, it's on Netflix. Where is that show? Where she plays a woman who is released from jail. She was found guilty of
Orange is the New Black? Not that one.
No. This is an English show, so she's English. That blonde. But back to episodes. That show is amazing to me because it's like my life in reverse.
Oh, really?
Right? So these English people come out and they're absolutely floored and taken aback by Hollywood.
Idea. Yeah,
no idea. And you get a little bit of how the vocabulary is it's two different languages, completely different languages.
Yeah.
And mine was in reverse. So about the time they started episodes was about the time I came here. And I remember when I first came here, like sitting in a pub and people talking to me, and I'm thinking, I'm hearing English words. I'm getting the words, but I have no idea what you're saying at all. It was months before. I mean, in a loud situation with drink and people get more animated. I mean, no clue for months what people were saying to me. No.
Oh, really?
And it's the weirdest sensation to hear English words. Like you can recognize the words, but have no idea what. It's like they're just reading random words from a dictionary almost.
It's the same language, isn't it? But obviously, it
completely different.
And here's a good example of it. Is that when I studied Mandarin, there were American students, there were Canadian students, there were Australian students, and even sometimes they couldn't understand we're all speaking English.
Right, right.
I don't understand you. And also that I think has a lot to do with the accent and their slang, for instance.
Exactly. Yeah.
What are you saying? And I remember going to the States once and asking for a bottle of water. I said water. Water.
That's my favorite.
Right? Very simple, right? I think I was in Seattle and I went up to this woman in a marketplace. Can I have a bottle of water, please? And it was this Chinese woman looked at me like, huh? Like that. And I said, can I have some water, please? Like water. And she went, huh? I don't understand what you're saying. And I went, and I gave up in the end. I just went, water, like that. And she came into me.
See? I have heard like at least 10 English people tell me the same story about the water. Yeah. Absolutely.
One letter sounding off, like
it sounds so different when you guys say it, though, and once you know what you're saying, then it doesn't sound so different. But if you hear it like just in and of itself, and there's no context, right? So you're in a shop, and you could be asking literally for anything, and you're saying "ta," and we're going, "What the fuck? What? No clue. What are you saying?" I've even been in a Starbucks and had someone ask for water, and an English person, and the Starbucks person was just completely like, I have no idea what you're asking for. What? It's just, but you're right. It's just, once you have a context for it, you know what you're saying, but sitting in a pub with people speaking with a thick English accent and getting more and more drunk, you're just like, oh man, what are you even saying? No clue.
I guess like you said, if once it gets to the point where they've drunk so much, then that's going to heighten their personality and the way they talk, won't they? So they'll be caught kind of off guard and No, it is funny how even the same language, but like it happens everywhere. Like, I was telling my friend Tommy when we did the Chinese New Year special, that there's a big difference between South, like areas of England, they all have their own regional accents, for instance.
Of course, yeah.
China's exactly the same. Like they have a video on YouTube which is really interesting where people are all saying the same phrase, but it sounds so different because they're from different regions.
Oh,
So you should look it up because that's really interesting. Like it just says, the person will tell them, okay, say this, and they'll just say like, hello, how are you? Or well, my name is blah, 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 and that's it. Something really simple. But then they get people from different areas of China and different regions and different cities. And I can't understand what some of them are saying. And I know the basics, but even, a lot of them I couldn't understand. So it is really interesting. And like the Beijing, I was telling him, is the kind of the famous one for them because it's lots of R sounds. And with us, it's
oh,
kind of
right.
like, the Cornwall, the Devon accent is very R, kind of like, like there's like war. It's that kind of stuff. So it is
Interesting.
interesting how accents work. And actually that kind of made me think, I mean, I've spoken about it so many times, but it was such a good TV show. And I know it's a TV show, so we should really talk about it. But then I guess we could, because really it's on Netflix. So the Squid Game.
TV and film it's
kind
no
of
longer what it
now,
yeah.
isn't it? And the same
Yeah.
that Squid Game, they were saying, and here's an interesting point actually. I saw that in the dubbed version. I didn't realize you could see that in the original version.
Oh.
And did you watch it?
No.
Oh, so
I'm the only one. I'm the one.
Yeah. Oh, okay. No, there are a few people. My sisters refuse to watch it as well. They're too scared. But it is a really good show. It's just it's difficult to watch at times. Yes, it's quite harrowing for sure.
Yeah.
But they were saying that actually my mum and her partner, when they saw it, because Netflix gives you both options. It gives you the options to listen in the dubbed version, and it gives you the original version. And actually, it's funny hearing people's views about it because when they see the original version, it comes across a lot more chilling and scary.
I bet.
Whereas it was quite hard at first because I didn't realize you could watch in two options. It just automatically came on in the dubbed, and I thought this sounds really stupid. But then after a while, you switch that off. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
So the context is different, but they were saying that in all those sort of YouTube videos about the making of it, that one of the female roles, she's from a certain in the show, she's meant to be from a certain area in South Korea, and she had to have a dialect coach because she knew that people would pick up on it and think like, well, you say you're from this place, but you don't sound like. Do you know what I mean? So,
yeah.
So it's very subtle, but we obviously don't know because if you're too lazy, we're listening to it in English. It's just general English, for instance. It's but yeah, it is really interesting how accents and voices and that is sort of it sort of confuses people totally. Actually, I was going to talk to you about that quickly, but I need to use the toilet quickly. So do you want to have a quick break?
Yes.
So let's have a quick pause and we'll come back.
Okay.
Okay, so hello, we're back again. We had a quick break, didn't we, Laura? So sorry about that. There's something I was going to ask you, because we're getting into that really interesting conversation about accents and languages. It clicked. Did you ever see the film Babel? And what did you think about it, if you have seen it?
No.
Oh my God, you gotta watch it. So it's one of these films. It's with Brad Pitt, Kate Blanchett, and I can't remember who the director was. It took them a whole year. It took him a whole year to make to film. Sorry, what am I talking about? To film, just to film it, because it's done through. So hang on, I'm gonna do Babel. So Babel is obviously, the famous. It's from the Bible, isn't it?
Yeah.
And there's that famous quote, which they use in the trailer actually, where it says, it's something like, "In the beginning all man's people spoke one language. And something like, do you know this phrase? I can't remember it. And it's something like, but fearful of what man could do, or something like that. God decided to confuse their language so they wouldn't understand each other. It was something like that. It's a famous bit from the Bible, which they use as part of the trailer. Oh, here it is. Here it is. Okay, hang on. Therefore, because the Lord confused the language so that nobody could understand each other. And in the film Babel, it is literally like that, because it's one of those films where it's all interconnected. You know, when you have those ensemble films, it's kind of like Magnolia, where it goes back and forth from different people, and their stories are all kind of end up being interconnected with each other, but they might not necessarily meet people, you know, that it goes on to. So, but they're all kind of like, which is a really interesting take on life, actually. Like, you know, this person knows this person, and as a consequence, this is happening, and this. So Babel's a bit like that. So basically, it starts off with an American couple in Morocco, and Kate Blanchett's his wife, and Brad Pitt's the husband, and they're on a tour bus, and she accidentally gets shot on the bus.
I think I've seen the start of this, and for some reason,
it, but then also it takes part in Morocco, in the States, in sometimes Mexico, and in Japan. So because their kids, the American tourist kids, are back home with the house, the babysitter, the house thing, and she's meant to go to her son's wedding in Mexico, but she ends up being an illegal immigrant. So she takes the kids across because at the same time their mother's been shot, so they can't get back home in time to let her go to her son's wedding. Basically, I mean, it's very, you know, complicated. But so the Japan bit is basically that there's a father and a daughter. The father sold the gun to, it's kind of to,
oh, I see, right.
Morocco, to a family in Morocco in this village. And the sons are playing around with this gun that the dad gave, I think, just to look after. And these sons are messing around with this rifle, which the Japanese businessman sold to them. And this is the rifle that basically shoots her.
Right.
So it's kind of like an accident, but they're all kind of interconnected. So there's the story of the American couple and the wife that's been shot on the bus. Then there's the story of the family in Morocco and the sons that have accidentally shot the woman on the bus because they were just messing around with the gun in the distance. And then there's the story of the man who sold the gun to that. So it's all kind of, but it kind of goes back and forth from each country. So I think it was set, they had to go over to several different, 3 or 4, so they had America, they had Morocco, Japan, and part of Mexico. So it's kind of set over 3 different continents. So can you imagine how hard that would have been to do all of that? So I think they would have had several, what do you call it when units? Is that what they do?
Yeah.
So they'll is that how a big film like that would work, for instance?
Yeah, you have either you have fixers in the area so they'll help set up everything that you need set up. You'll hire you'll have connections to hire your basic crew. Obviously everyone above the line and heads of departments come, but everyone else will be hired locally.
Okay. So for instance, the big boss would obviously be the director, and I'd guess he'd have to maybe do it by the internet or go every now and then, and they'll have maybe a DP who's in charge of that country in that unit. Would it work that way?
No, the producer would be doing all of that.
That
work.
So they would be their boss, basically, the one who's in charge of the creative side of telling the real director's story, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So if you think about it, your producer is the mother father, right? And they handle all the logistics, and the director is the artist who comes up with the vision for everything, and then this director works most often with a DP. So that DP is going to follow and shoot everything
Okay.
from country to country. So you'd get you'd have a location manager in territory that would come back to you with suggestions, and then you probably would have done a scout. The director and the
Yeah.
producer and the DP would have gone and scouted, made sure they liked it, and
All
then
together.
you talk to
Yeah.
the local crew. Yeah, exactly. So you in cases like that, you only travel with what you A can't get in the country, or
Okay.
B the people who are also responsible for creative look and feel, right? You're not going to change a DP in the middle of
Yeah.
a shoot, right?
So a lot of the time, would they have used they would have used locals, because I'd imagine for visa purposes that would have been really, really hard to make sure everyone's got visas in order to be able to go work in this country and then send them over to another country. So
Yeah, yeah,
unless
and
the
it's just
actors
not,
are doing it, but then
of course, yes, but
it
most it's not, especially for big productions. Like if you're doing branded stuff like commercials, um, it's a little more difficult. But for big features, the world has figured out that we spend a lot of money.
yes.
movies Movies spend a lot of money, from feeding to housing to all of that. So films are usually pretty welcome, and so visas are a pain, but they don't. Most of the time countries realize that it's a benefit. So at least in my experience, now to be fair, I've not shot in that many
Yeah, yeah,
exotic locations, but
yeah.
it's
Actually, that's a good question to ask you. Is that during the lockdowns when nobody was allowed to travel, some film companies were allowed to travel, weren't they? I think because it was. I think I remember hearing that because it was their work. I'm not sure. It was quite. It got quite complicated, didn't it? Like who
it
could go
did.
and who couldn't go, and because technically everything was shut down, the borders were shut down. We weren't allowed to travel anywhere, and they weren't allowed to travel here. And, but they were
I don't
making.
think I don't think there was much done,
No,
and there was a
everything was
lot of.
down.
It did kind of switch things so that more local crews were being hired, but
Right.
most people weren't working in the heart of it. And I will say that the shitty part about Corona, or a shitty part about it, in combo with Brexit, was Brexit hit and then Corona hit, and because they gave no thought to any part of Brexit, no planning to any part of Brexit,
Yeah.
we certainly didn't think at all about the movie industry. Which what was the stat just came out recently? There was 13 billion or something last year in UK film production. I mean, it was a I'm riffing on that number, but it was a huge number. No thought was given to us, and so for our industry, it has become very difficult to travel,
Mm.
whereas it used to be super easy.
Yeah.
And even when even when something like shooting in Norway would be a breeze, you go over, you shoot, you're back. Now that we're not in the EU, and with COVID, it meant we were under a different rule and regulation than the EU. So if I was in the EU shooting and going to Norway, easy peasy, no problem. But coming from the UK suddenly was a big deal. And I've had shoots we couldn't go over. We just had to hire locally, and that was that.
Yeah. And people don't seem to realize that actually the film industry employs a ridiculous amount of people, doesn't it? And, like you said,
It's
that would
enormous.
basically be a huge chunk of the economy basically cut off. And then
Yeah,
that's kind of like a ripple effect because it would affect this, then it would affect this. Do you know what I mean? So,
yeah, yeah. I
so
mean, if you boil it down to just simple numbers, the fact that I can't take a crew with me means DPs living in the UK aren't working. I would have, if it's a small, say a branded content piece, right? You end up taking a sound person, a camera op, and like a gaffer. So those are three, usually then the last person you want to leave behind is your DP, because
hmm,
that's a lot to risk on someone you've not worked with before.
yeah,
But now those people won't get, those UK citizens won't get that work because I have to hire in territory.
yeah.
So
Um,
that's,
yeah.
horrible.
Did you I can't remember. I think it was last year, or maybe it was the year before. See, it's the thing with COVID is that because of so many
It's
lockdowns,
a,
we lost track of time, don't we? So
Totally. It was
I
all one lump to be, you know, when it's like a box of chocolates that was left in the car and melted? They
yes,
used to be individual. Now it's just this lump of,
I don't remember what happened when.
I have no clue. I have no clue. I mix now, like, from like 2000, like 18 is almost a blur, isn't it? So it all,
Yeah,
18, 19, 20, 21. Oh my God, we're in 22. It's just this lump of
I know.
all one year.
And it doesn't feel like it's been 2 years already, nearly. I mean, hang on, we
I
saw
know. Does that blow your mind? I'm
it
totally,
does, because I just feel like I haven't, well, especially in 2020 when that was the worst year, wasn't it?
yeah,
Um, I just feel like a lot of people, I hadn't accomplished anything. I'd done nothing for 6 months because, I teach swimming, and obviously I'm an actor as well. But then obviously the acting side sort of shut down, and then eventually
done.
people were doing, like you, were eventually doing self tapes and things, which is what I've been doing a lot more. And actually, that's sort of stuck around a lot more now, hasn't it?
Yes, I think
People
so.
aren't doing so much traveling to go to auditions as much. It sort of happens now, but I think everyone's kind of playing it safe, and now they'd rather do self tapes. So
Self
they
tapes,
just
yeah.
say,
Same for voiceovers. All
"Oh,
like
really?
it's whereas it was always in studio before, and now it's home studio, home studio, home
Yeah,
studio.
yeah." So it just felt like that whole year was like, "What have I done? I don't know what I've done." And
I don't
then
even know the beginning of the end of that year. Like
I know, I
what?
know,
Are we done with 1920?
I know,
I
I
mean
know.
2020?
So but what I was saying was, when do you remember that there was that famous incident where Tom Cruise, because he's obviously the producer, he was the producer of the latest Mission Impossible film at the time, and there was that famous rant that he had to two of the
Yeah,
crew members, wasn't there? And then you realize, so you think, so that there was kind of two sides to that argument. Was one, he shouldn't, he sounds like a bully, but then on the flip side, people in the film industry were kind of behind him, because he's right. What he's saying, these are people's
absolutely.
livelihoods. You're jeopardizing their livelihoods. He's and nobody
Absolutely.
and nobody mentioned that actually they'd done it before. They weren't paying attention to the rules, and he had a sort of quiet word of them. And then he just flipped, like he would do, because he's also got the stress of being a producer, making
That's
sure
right.
that the film goes in a cinema, because no one's going to the cinema at all. And he's making sure, he needs to make sure that everyone starts going back to the cinema. So that was like a whole thing with the big films like James Bond, that
Yeah.
film, they all had to go, because that's an industry in itself. But he was saying basically these are people's livelihoods. People are sending their kids to college,
Yeah.
food. So what are you doing? So that's kind of another thing to it, isn't it? Really, you don't realize actually this is people's livelihoods, and if you take that away, like you said, there's no help for them. I mean, there was
Yeah.
like a job scheme. We had furlough, and I know a few people who are self-employed. They got some help from the government, but the film music side and the theatre industry, they really struggled, didn't they?
That well, there was no support. I can't remember what I can't remember what the rules were for you had to, if you were going to apply for help as a freelancer, there was really odd rules that almost no one qualified for. I mean, thank God for me that I had been teaching at Ravensbourne and that just kicked
Yeah,
in. So that was excellent for
a good
me. But
backup. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
And
But
also
the but the
you were still keeping busy as well, because you were still
yeah.
working and doing that via Zoom, teaching your students.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Right.
But I mean, yeah, people were just, I loved that rant. I personally thought, like, I was super right on him. Whatever crazy he is, Scientology nonsense, he,
Aside, yeah.
yeah, like that was spot on. And he seems like, he takes care of his crew.
Yeah.
People are always seem really happy. I think proof is in the pudding. He gets the same crew goes back and back and back and back and back.
Oh,
You
really?
don't
So
go
he
back to
tends to
yeah,
work the same people. Okay.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And that
And
says
he's
a lot, doesn't it, about him as
absolutely
I mean, put aside, like you said, his personal, stuff like his Scientology and all that stuff. That's a different thing. But in the works thing, he's looking out for everyone. He's making sure they're all safe. So he's got,
yeah,
he's got that to sort of. that pressure on. He's their boss, really. He's not just the
Absolutely. Well, and as the producer, that money is, it's on his head if he doesn't finish
Yes,
production.
yeah.
Do you remember? I don't know if it was that
And the studio is on
shoot.
top of him as well, aren't they?
Oh, absolutely, because that's a lot of
Them
money.
pressing against him. It's kind of like them on him and he's on them, and it's just like he
Yes.
needs to make sure that people start going back because it's affecting people's jobs and there's no money coming in, and it's
Yeah.
like a vicious
I was
cycle.
totally down with that rant. I thought that was brilliant.
Yeah. So
Go,
what were you
Tom.
saying? Yeah. So what were you saying about that? Sorry, because I interrupted you.
No, 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 no. I was. No, I was just saying. I mean, the thing too was that was before the vaccine, wasn't it? So
Yes. Yes. Oh, yes.
there's
You're right.
no.
Yeah.
There
Because
was a
that's when we were all
crapshoot of. Yeah, there was a crapshoot though whether or not you could get that and possibly die, right? So
yeah. Yeah.
or long COVID as well. I mean, you must have. I've got at least two friends who are suffering long COVID, and it's awful. I
Yeah.
just found out a very good friend of mine had COVID, and it had damaged his lungs to such an extent that he was hospitalized and nearly died,
Oh my
and he's
God.
still suffering with it. They put him on a treatment of steroids, so he's gained weight because of it, but he's alive and his lungs are finally healing. But this has
Yeah.
been a couple of years for him. Can you
Wow.
imagine?
Yeah. No,
And
I
if
do. Sorry.
imagine some dick comes on set and doesn't want to wear a mask or hasn't, is up in my face without a mask, and
That would
mm-mm.
piss me off. Yeah.
Yeah,
It would. It would.
yeah, yeah,
It would. So, yeah. I don't know. Oh, actually, because we're talking about film sets and how they work. This is another thing I kind of want to sort of bring up with you. What did you think about, this awful thing that happened with Alec Baldwin when he was shooting?
girl, that was so
That's tragic,
so.
isn't it? Really
It's
tragic.
tragic. It's a shit show. It's
She was a
tragic to have.
cinematographer, wasn't she?
Yeah,
Yeah,
she
yeah,
was the
yeah, yeah.
DP. So he shot. The bullet went through through her chest and hit the director behind her.
Mm.
They were both watching the monitor. It's a shit show. It is, from everything that I've read, and I'm super into this. I've read almost every article I could get my hands on.
Yeah.
That the producers were just trying to cut every possible way they could, weren't taking care of the crew, and they asked their armorer, this is her second feature.
Hmm.
So the armorer is in charge of all weaponry on set.
Yes.
They asked her to take on another role as well, so she was doing two jobs at once,
Right.
which to me on a Western is completely crazy because a Western is nothing but guns, right?
Hmm.
It's like if you've
That's the
got a
main part
gangster
of the
movie.
film. So yeah, you need to make
Absolutely,
sure
yeah.
safety was.
So you want, and I think because she was new, she took the role or took both roles rather than putting her foot down and saying, no, I'm only going to do one. It was just sloppy all the way through. And I
Hmm.
think it's rather telling that they had crew walk off that day.
I was going to say because there were reports of people walking off, weren't they, saying that they're safe. They were not. They were
They were
worried
not,
for their safety.
and this was not the first, not the second, but the third accidental shooting on that, or a mess up with
Oh,
firearms on
really?
that set. Yeah,
So
yeah,
on the same set. So that was the third
yes.
time.
It
But
was the third time.
I'd imagine the first two times were minor. It's minor.
Yes. Now I have
But
not
even though
found
it's
any.
yeah.
Yeah, I have not found what specifically happened in the first two. If they were just discharges and it hit something and it was clearly like the live round, or what exactly were the first two incidences. But the fact is, at one is when you shut everything down and you have a solid reevaluation of what's going on.
Yeah.
Because you don't do that, someone's going to die, and no one should die making a film. We were making films, not saving lives. Like,
But that's
that's
the
just
thing.
silly.
It was sloppy, wasn't it? It was sloppy work because they're getting rid of the
Absolutely.
most important people, and like you said, they're trying to cut back on expenses.
Yep.
And you think,
Yes.
what's more important, this or the cost of your crew and cast's lives? Do you know?
And you know what? And you can put it into money, right? You can
Yeah.
boil it down to money. As a producer, if I was producing that feature, and there had been, like I said, that first accidental accidental shot or whatever it was, I would absolutely shut down, take a day off for everyone, and sit with my armorer and my AD and everyone else and say, what is going on? What's happening? Why, this needs to be 100 times more safe. And you can look at it financially. So how much is it costing now? That film will never finish. So it'll never be marketable. You'll never have anything to sell off of it. You'll never make your money back. On top of that, you've got X number of lawsuits launching. They might not all win, but one or two of them will win, and you've lost all of that money. So instead of shutting down for a day or two and making sure and locking everything down and figuring out what went wrong and making sure it doesn't happen again, where you would have lost 2 days of pay for all the crew and 2 days for all of that, big deal. But now you've got this amount of costs, which are Herculean.
Yeah.
And that was their, like, let's just do this cheap and easy, shitty, and get out of here. It is disgusting. It's absolutely disgusting.
Are they ever going to go back to finishing the rest, or
No,
that's it now?
they'll never
No,
finish
they
that film.
can't. They can't now, can they? Because there's been too much media.
I mean, let's be honest. We know that if they did finish that film, everyone would rush to see it because of what it is. But they'll never finish it. I mean, I'd honestly be amazed if Alec Baldwin works again.
Really,
I kind of think
it's hard, isn't it? Because you don't know. Like, we don't realize that was he the producer as well.
he was also a producer.
So in a way, you think well, you feel bad for him because he's the actor and he's just the poor person that fires and gets shocked. But then at the same time, actually, he's part of the problem because he's the producer.
Yeah.
I know on those sort of sets they have several producers, so he would have been like the big one.
There were three men that were the so Alec probably, a proper way of labeling him was probably exec producer. So an exec producer is just a money person, right? So
Okay.
everything that I've read, crew testifies that he wasn't really on set until it was time for him to be there as an actor in the film.
Right.
So he wasn't really on set acting in the capacity of a producer. Point is, that is a label that's on his name, and he should have been more aware. But the three producers that were absolutely aware and would say things to the crew, like, there was one day they had to shoot in a ravine. This is I think he was the AC, and he walked off, and he said that the ravine was something like, really steep, and they had to hump all the equipment down by themselves into the ravine. They shot and they had to hump it all back up. And this was a long day. And then on top of it, production wasn't willing to rent them a hotel near the set. So they had to drive 50 miles back to Santa Fe every day. So that's an hour and a half just one way.
Yeah.
After a long day's shoot, and then your turnaround is, however early in the morning. So just really kind of shitty cost-saving efforts on that.
Well, you think about it, like you said, I mean, 1 or 2 days, yeah, okay, fair enough. You're going to lose out on so much money. But now they've completely lost all of it, and it's been for nothing, hasn't it? So they've wasted all this money for nothing, when it could have been, if it was done for the proper procedures of their safety, then none of this would have happened. And fair enough, 2 days, like one day, they can make it up later on, if need be. Because you always hear about how productions go over schedule sometimes, if they need it. And but then at the same time, this is another part of the argument, is that people should have learned their lesson from after, the tragic Brandon Lee accident from The Crow, because that was the well-known one, wasn't there? I mean, there have been a few occasions with other actors, but we don't really hear about them. There was a TV actor who was also shot as well and killed. But nobody, you would have thought that actually, and that was 93, was that 93, 94, something like that?
Something early 90s, yeah.
You would have thought, they would have, after that would have made...
Why was live ammo on set? That makes no fucking sense at all. Why? There's no reason on God's green planet. And in fact, the store that sold the ammunition to the armorer is being sued.
For The Crow or for Rust?
No, for Rust.
Okay.
Because there's just no reason
No,
at all for
no.
live ammo to ever be on set.
Oh, so there was live ammo in
Yeah,
the
yeah, it was it was that's why she's dead. It was a real bullet. He shot her with a real bullet.
Oh my God. Whereas the
He was
one
told
the one with Brandon Crowe was it, that was a blank, wasn't
that
it?
one, as I remember, that was a blank, but like a piece of shrapnel shot through, if I remember
Okay.
right.
Not that it's acceptable at all, but yes, yeah. I was
No,
just
no,
saying.
no, exactly.
No, no, no,
But you
yeah.
know, a shitty accident.
Yeah, of course. It's a terrible act.
As I remember, I want to now. Now I have to go read about that one. But as I remember, it
Yeah,
was like it was a piece of shrapnel from the blank, a freak accident, and it got him right in the heart. Like it
yeah,
was pretty quick and easy.
yeah.
This was an actual bullet that was shot.
So you're basically, yeah, no, that you're kind of signing and yeah, that you're right. There's no
It's
reason for that.
it's crazy,
Whereas at least with
and
the
there's
Crow, you can understand that they were trying to take measures with using blanks, even though it ended up really, really tragic.
yes,
But they were doing the things they could to prevent anything happening. You know what I mean? In their
yeah,
life.
yeah.
So, what was the reason behind using live ammo, live
Well,
ammunition? Is that
that's
what
the
we don't
question
know
that no
yet?
one. I did read early on that they were like, as for fun and games, going and shooting bullets, you know, like after the shoot or whatever. I don't. I've only read that once, and I think that was in the LA Times. But then this lawsuit, if you read the lawsuit, it says that, and it was brought by the armorer's dad, who's a very famous armorer himself,
Mm.
and he's suing uh, the company that provided the ammunition because he says the box was mixed. So blanks, when they have a certain marking on them, and you can also shake them, and they make a
Mm.
noise, they rattle. Whereas live bullets do not. They also don't have that marking. So apparently, she got a box that was half and half, or had some live ammo in it, and but it's all just really confused at this point, as
Yeah,
far
but
as I've
also
read.
that's not really her fault, though, was it? She was given two jobs. She was
You
doing
know,
her job,
though,
and then she was doing the job of something she was not meant to, and kind of
I feel like it was her fault because in the end,
really.
if you don't know how to, if you've not made absolutely sure that that's a blank in that gun, that there are only blanks in that gun, if you've not pulled every bullet out, shaken it, looked for the mark, put it back in,
Hmm.
and then never let it out of your hand until you hand it to the AD, and the AD should have done the same thing. So the two
Oh, is
people
that
on
what
set,
happened?
yes, the two
Because
people on
she
set in a situation like that is the armorer, and they're meant to lock everything up, monitor everything. So apparently, she writes that, or she says that she loaded the gun, put the gun back, went to lunch, and then after lunch was when this happened. She handed the gun to the AD, and the AD handed it to Alec and said it's cold, which means it's okay, you can fire this gun. The AD didn't check to make sure that they were blanks. That's him not working again ever. And she didn't check after lunch. That's her not working ever again ever.
Oh, okay. So
So
if that had happened to someone else, then she would have been kind of made accountable for it in a
she
way.
is accountable
Well,
though.
yeah,
I mean,
yeah, because it was
she
herself.
absolutely.
But I mean, it's really tragic. It's something that wouldn't have happened at all,
I
would
just
it?
don't understand. I
If
don't
people
understand
weren't
how
so
it got so
lazy.
fucking lazy.
Yeah, yeah,
How did
exactly.
how do
Just
you?
to cut costs. Is it
Yes.
that bad that
How did that AD not? Because on set, like I say, you as the AD are responsible. When you take that gun from the armorer, now you are responsible for that gun. You are responsible for a dangerous weapon on set.
hmm,
And if you were going to hand this, I mean, I would never, ever, ever hand a weapon to someone on set and not have checked everything myself.
yeah, yeah,
Because A, that's my job as the AD.
yeah.
What the hell?
And
What the
also, if you
hell?
think about it, if I mean, he is an actor, but if he was employed as just the actor, I'm saying, if it was in a
Yeah.
a parallel universe, then he wouldn't know, would he? He'd trust what they're saying, just like, okay, it's ready now. Here you go, off you go
Well,
do that.
even as a producer, you know, I think in that sense, Alec is completely um, free of guilt in the sense that, yeah, as an actor, you're handed a weapon. You understand what protocol is. Hopefully you've been briefed prior to the
And
shoot.
trained, yeah.
Here's how it works. You will never you be handed a gun with live ammo. When I hand you the gun, I'll say it's a cold gun, which means blah 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 blah. He's done many westerns before. He understands this. So he's in that sense when he picked up the gun and fired it. Though why you would fire a weapon at point blank at someone is I think you could have just
Questionable.
pointed it and gone, "Is this good?" Good. Okay,
Yeah,
cool. But whatever. He was perfectly within his rights to think that that gun was safe.
yeah, yeah. So what lawsuits? So basically, the whole film now has lost all its money. Um, does anyone get any money from that job, or would they been paid before, or would it be like a deferred thing where they get so much from the budget coming back, the money that came back?
No, all crew will be paid for all
Okay,
days worked.
okay, so they'd be paid. But so what lawsuits are going out now? What so do you know what I mean? There would be several things happening in court. So would it be one
There
for
is
him?
there's the Sound Op has filed a lawsuit because he was next to the DP and the director.
Right.
So he's filed a lawsuit.
Because he could have obviously been injured as well.
Right.
Okay.
The armorer's dad has filed a lawsuit
Right.
against the ammo supply, and then there's a third lawsuit, and I can't remember if it's the crew that walked out or someone else. And I think her husband, the DP's husband, will file a lawsuit. I hope he does.
Yeah.
Um, but I think either he's going to or he has done
Okay.
already.
It's amazing that her family haven't, isn't it? Really,
Well,
like,
yeah, but I think he most definitely will. I mean, you have to. You've got a small child, and that's half your income lost, and
yeah,
your wife lost.
yeah. It's so sad, isn't it? It's really,
It's
really,
awful.
and her career was taking off as well, wasn't she? Was kind of at the beginning.
Yeah,
What was she before she became a cinematographer?
I think she always. Well, I've
She
only read
always
that
was.
she. I think so. Yeah.
That was kind of like a big job for her, wasn't it? When she went
It's
on.
yeah, yeah. I think she'd done one other feature before with that director, and this was her second feature, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, she was
Yeah,
definitely, and it's a really good. I think it's a really, really good time for female cinematographers
really.
because, well, yeah, because they've never won an Academy Award, um, and they've never gotten credit. And people to this day still think like, oh, are there women cinematographers? Or
Mm.
I'm not kidding you. In the last couple of years, I've had students come through Ravensbourne say to me, oh, I don't think women can be cinematographers. And I'd say, why? And they say, because it's a lot of heavy lifting. Wait, what? What are you saying? What do you mean? So it's, but I think people are really pushing for that. And I think it's a really excellent time to be a female
Yeah.
cinematographer.
Um, what does a cinematographer do exactly? Are they in charge of like the visual, like say for instance, seeing the film as a photo? Is that what they are? Like, does that make sense? Are they sort
Yeah,
of the
absolutely.
visual side of it
They
rather than
are they are
art
the
direction?
visual side of it. They are the lighting side of it, and they are
Okay.
the so so say for example, I'm on a project and I as the director have come up with I have a feature. I'll just go with the feature I've got a feature that I'm pitching around, and it's kind of a children's title or a children's film with a dog. So I've got this very clear idea of what I want it to look like, which is kind of like a Nanny McPhee set. Bright colors, very full set, lots of art design. A DP, when I sit down with them, will take all that on board and go, great, okay, we are going to light this way. And I will come to the DP with images and photos and art or whatever I can come up with to kind of show them. I want it to look like this.
Mm.
And then the DP's job is to make that happen. So lens choices or how they shoot or what camera they shoot with or what the movements are like. All of that is what the DP brings in terms of choices for the director of communicating that idea and
Okay.
what actors should know. is the on set, your best friend should be your DP,
Mm.
because your DP can light you and make you look beautiful, or can light you and make you look like a piece of shit.
So you don't want to
They,
make enemies with that person, then, do you?
no, you want to have the best relationship. It always surprises me when actors come on and they're shitty to their DPs, because I'm like, you girl
Does
are
that
pushing it.
happen, do you think, when the
Oh
DP
yeah,
gets
I've been on sets and had to pull actors aside and say, you're being a little bit rude. Like,
and you got to be careful because
yeah, they are really good DPs. Know their job is to know how to light you. Their job is to find the glow in your skin, or to make your nose smaller or larger, or your chin sharper, or they know how to do that. And if you come on as an actor and you're uppity, or you dismiss them because it's not a director, or you whatever you do,
or diva, or yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah, yeah.
they have all sorts of great ways of getting back to you.
Really?
Getting back. Yes, yes.
Have you seen
These are
examples of that? I mean, can you pick that up on things that you see? Maybe not so
no, no,
no.
I've not seen. I've heard stories
Oh, have
of
you?
DPs. Yes, I've heard DPs tell great stories of shit they've done just to mess with
Really?
actors. Yeah,
I need to
yeah.
talk to someone who's a DP and see if they've done it, or if you know of anyone.
You do, and you know what? It might not be as vindictive as some of the stories I've heard, but it will be like, I mean, they are your gift on set.
Yeah,
They can make you look a thousand quid, or they can make you look like, two two
yeah.
bucks.
$2. But
Yeah,
that's also a very interesting point that you bring up, because um, there are unfortunately some actors who come across as absolute a-holes, to be honest,
dicks.
and,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
and they think they're the best singer songwriters, and the world revolves around them, and that without them, in their minds, in their sort of narcissistic mind, they think without them this wouldn't be a success. Do you know what I mean?
yeah, yeah.
And these
Absolutely.
people don't realize, and it happens in, it doesn't necessarily happen with actors. There can be in other parts of the crew, for instance, but they really don't understand that it is a team effort, isn't it?
Yes, yes,
Everyone is there to make this thing look good at the end. So if you piss someone off, they're going to talk, and
yeah,
really, it's kind of like the theatre industry, because you've probably worked in theatre, and
yep.
I worked in theatres many years on and off between travelling as front of house. It's a very small community, so
It
this
is.
person will know this person, and then this person goes to that place, and then do you know, they'll be talking to oh, I know that person, and
Yeah,
people talk.
yeah. Oh yeah, girl. It is the smallest community in the world. I think our
Yeah.
world. It is so small, and it's crazy to me. I did an audio commentary. I won't do any names,
Okay.
but I did an audio commentary, and the director comes in, and he was late, and he comes in and he goes, that fucking bitch. Hated his lead actress so badly. So he'd get in the booth and we would do like 15 minutes, and he'd go, I gotta stop it, I gotta stop it. And then he would just cuss and tell us stories, myself and the sound engineer, tell us stories off of set, which were just like jaw dropping.
Really?
And then he'd go, okay, right, start it back up. And then he'd be back to the audio commentary. I just so wish that I had the outtakes, because they were hilarious. But but we can point to many actors who have horrible reputations for being divas, or whatever the male equivalent is. I mean, look at Val Kilmer, was notoriously hard and horrible to work with, and where is he
Really?
now? Yeah, yeah,
Oh, yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. I didn't
And
realize that he was one of them. I mean,
yeah. Well, I'm reading a book. Oh crap, I'm gonna forget the name of it. It's about the making of Chinatown, the movie.
oh, okay.
And actually, I highly recommend the book. It's really, really
Hmm.
a good read, really fun. But they talk about Faye Dunaway in this. Now, she has a huge reputation of being a complete diva.
Really?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Really difficult to work with, which makes Mommy Dearest so much funner to watch.
Oh, really?
But her behavior in this too is also atrocious. And you think, right, how many movies has Faye done? Not a lot.
Yeah.
Not a lot.
And you know
And it's
what's
because,
funny is that when you say that, it kind of, you think about that famous. I mean, it wasn't that long ago, but it's gone so quick. The famous Oscar blunder when it was her and Warren.
and Warren doing,
But he was
yeah,
actually, I think he was actually, you know, she afterwards, when it all came out that actually, no, this is what happened. She didn't want anything to do with it, did she? She just walked right away. She refused to answer anyone. Whereas he was actually, him and Jimmy Kimmel, who was the host, etc. They were trying to say, actually, well, I did this because I didn't realize it. And
yeah, yeah,
he
yeah,
was actually quite gracious, wasn't he? Like, when as soon as it happened, he goes, "I'm sorry." You know, he explained himself. He said, "I was confused and I gave it to her," and but she didn't answer anyone. She just like, "I want nothing to
yeah,
do with that." And that kind of says like what you're saying. It brings up like, actually, she doesn't. That's not a very nice way to approach it, and you don't come across as a very good person
yeah, yeah,
by
exactly.
kind of going, "I refuse to answer your question." Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
It
Well,
doesn't show you in a good light.
and if you add to it the fact that like an actor's life, in particular a female actor's
Mm,
life on screen, it's longer now, but you're still struggling at a certain point to get any kind of decent roles.
mm,
And your moment, let's go Scarlett Johansson. Her moment in the sunlight will end, and there'll
yeah,
be someone right behind her who will take her spot, and Scarlett will be forgotten. And so you can either work as long as you can and be part of the crew and come in and be a professional, or you can be shitty and work much less than you'll want to, and then especially as a female actress have a lot less opportunity.
yeah.
It's not worth it, people.
No, no. So do you think eventually they do kind of get their karma back to them eventually?
I think
Like you
some
said.
do, don't they?
Yeah.
I think some do. Definitely. I mean, Sharon Stone is notorious. She
Oh, is
doesn't get a
she?
lot of work. She doesn't get a lot of work. Faye certainly didn't get a lot of work. Val's dead and gone. I think Russell
Alec
Crowe
Baldwin
was,
probably soon.
well, yeah. Now Alec
But
didn't
that
have
hasn't
a
got much to
reputation
do with
as
his
being.
personality. Yeah.
No, I think he was really well liked. I mean, he was certainly very funny. Do you
Yeah.
ever watch? I love um Jerry Seinfeld's comedians getting coffee. Comedians
Oh,
in cars getting
I've
coffee.
heard about it. Yeah. Also, is he one of the guests?
He was on twice, and he's hilarious.
Oh,
And
is
I
he
mean, he
really?
really is a very talented, very can be
Yeah.
very funny, can be amazingly dramatic. But
And
and I
that's not
don't think
so
he's a
much to
diva.
do
He's
with
just done.
any of his diva reputation. That's just to do with
No,
his
I don't.
technical
Yeah,
development,
I've
unfortunately.
never heard. I'm not to say that he's not, but I've never heard any bad
Yeah.
diva stories about him. But Russell Crowe, where did he go? It's because he's a dick.
Yeah. Oh, but there have been countless stories about his anger, though, haven't there? And his.
Yeah.
So actually, yeah, you're right. I haven't seen much of him around lately.
Nope. Nope. It's just crazy to me that I mean, acting is, as you know, such a it's the hardest. It makes directing look easy, right? In terms
Yeah.
of like getting opportunities for roles and being able to paint your own career. It's really ridiculously hard, brutal business to come up in it and then be a dick and ruin it for yourself. It's sad.
Yeah.
It's just
Yeah. They don't
it
realize
really.
that actually, like you said, it's a small community and people talk. And then, there's a saying in the theatre. It's something like, be nice to the people on the way up because you'll be seeing them on the way back down
On the
again.
way back down, absolutely.
And
That's
it's
it,
true
absolutely.
because they're going to go through
Totally
waves
true.
where they get work and then they'll be unemployed and then they'll, like
Yes.
that. And that's like
Yes.
anyone, I think. So, it's just general, niceness and
Absolutely.
I'll ask you one more thing and then we'll wrap up. So, because we were talking about, because I am also interested in that side, like the marketing, the studios, and etc. It would be interesting to get someone involved in that. But when we were talking about Judy Garland and the old days earlier, where we said the studios were the ones that had the most control over the actors.
Right.
Not so much now. I think everything's a bit more kind of
Yes.
liberal. I mean, everything, uh, but they would have at that time, especially when you watch this film and you see documentaries, they were really hard on their stars, weren't they?
Mm,
They put them on vigorous diets, and they didn't realize that with her, they were giving her like drugs to slim down, and she couldn't sleep, so she could sleep, and then to wake her up, and she's just
yeah,
literally pumped for this crap.
yeah,
And
yeah,
she
yeah.
doesn't know, and obviously you would, because you're a young girl, and you go in, and this is like a sort of like a father figure, even though she's got parents, and her parents weren't that nice to her
No, her
either.
mom was shitty.
The
Yeah,
mom was giving her drugs as well, wasn't she?
yeah,
And you know, that's a hard thing for a young girl to. She's basically supporting the entire family, isn't she?
yes, exactly.
So a young girl doesn't get to have her childhood being thrust in the limelight, saying you can't eat this, you can't eat that. Um, and it sort of shows in the beginning of that film, the like one of the top bosses, like, you know, oh, someone else can easily walk along, a much more prettier girl than you can come along and do that. So was that quite common, do you think, at that era? Would they've really been that hard on their
Oh,
starlet?
absolutely. Absolutely, absolutely. There's for anyone who's interested, really take a moment and do some reading on Betty Davis, who is, if you've not seen any of her stuff, a
Hmm.
phenomenal actress.
Yeah.
Really, really
And
good.
she's
But
not
she,
typically beautiful, is she? She wasn't so,
no,
but she was
no.
an amazing actress, but she was quite sort of like, what you can imagine people thinking, kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah,
Is that what
yeah, an
people thought
incredible.
of her?
Well, in part, yes, but she actually she was under contract and famously sued the studios for freedom because they I think in part, as she describes it, you know, she wasn't a drop dead gorgeous woman, so it was, but she absolutely commanded attention and was absolutely
And she's
star.
very striking on camera. So even if she's not
Absolutely.
conventionally beautiful, you can get people who are very interesting looking. We're not,
Yes.
which makes them unique and beautiful in their
Yes.
own way.
A bit like Alan Rickman's voice to
Yes,
round it
yes,
back.
yes, yes,
But
exactly.
but she actually famously sued, I believe it was Warner Brothers, to get out of her contract, and actually had to come over here and was doing work in London while she was kind of blacklisted or being sued. Because what would happen is if you refused, they would give you a script and say you're going to do this, and if you refuse, you would be suspended, and you would have to pay for that suspension time. And you could be, and that was all part of your contract. So you could be without any scripts coming your way for months and months and months, and you would just have to wait it out. So she came to London to work, and she actually won that case, which started to change things. But I mean, it happened to all of them, male and female alike. They were all chattel, and they were all meant to. There was, you know, lots of men and women being, you know, saved from their gay relationships. You know, you were told to marry.
Yes, I remember it. Yes, Rock
So
Hudson was a famous one for doing that, wasn't he?
yeah,
And
exactly.
it was
Yeah.
kind of well known. I mean, even though
Oh yes.
I mean, you know, it was speculated, but it was kind of like at the time it was so like it was such a big kind of like like, you know, oh no, homosexuality is awful, da, da, da. And it is like getting married to kind of keep up the appearances of
Yes, that's right.
what the
That's
studio
right.
wanted him to come across as.
And you were, you know, there were couples that weren't allowed to marry because the studio thought it would be bad for the male or the female, you know,
Oh
if
really?
oh yeah, yeah, yeah. If you know they were in love, but like let's say it wasn't necessarily her, but just Rita Hayworth pops to mind, right? So Rita wants to get married, and the studio says no because if you're married, you won't be male fantasy anymore, so no. Or
Wow.
yeah. So it was complete control. If you wanted to work, you did what you were told to do.
I didn't realize they had that much control. That's actually really frightening, isn't it?
Well, yeah, and all the way down to choosing your name. You know,
Yeah.
that was absolutely pretty, if you think about it, that's pretty crazy. You walk on studio and you're finally on lot and you're like, "Oh my God, this is amazing." They go, "Right. Your name is not Sonia Chang anymore. It's going to be Millie
Yeah.
Smith."
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
What?
yeah.
You've just removed my
Identity.
name. Yeah,
Yeah.
my identity.
Without telling me. Um,
Yeah.
that's that's really scary.
'Cause
I don't
Judy
know.
was Gum, wasn't she? Wasn't she Judy Gum? I believe that was her real name.
Yeah, because a lot of them. I mean, Marilyn Monroe wasn't her real name. Her real name was it Norma Jean?
Norma Jean.
And then
And
I'm gonna look up Judy Garland's real name. Hang on, Judy Garland's
it was,
real name was Frances Ethel Gum.
yes, I was right about the gun. My very favorite is John Wayne.
Oh, let me look him up. Hang on, John. This is quite interesting, actually. So the actors wouldn't have been able to chosen their own name. Then it was a studio.
No.
His name. Oh, Marion Robert Morrison.
Yeah, isn't that hilarious? Marion. John Wayne was Marion.
Yeah, you can see how that wouldn't go down well with a famous sort of gruff man in a Western film, like
No.
starring. Yeah.
Marion.
Yeah.
Look at and Cary Grant's is a perfect one too because Cary Grant, it's such an English name. His original name was such an English name.
Was it really?
Are you looking?
So
Yeah,
look it
you're
up.
looking him up. Yeah,
Cary. We could play a whole game on this, couldn't we?
you
Oh
totally
my
could.
god! He's got
So English, right?
Archibald
Leach.
Alexander Leach. Archibald Alexander Leach. Yes, that's another name you couldn't have really. That was his real name.
And I can't see him as an Archibald. Can you? Archie.
No, no, but this is really
I guess
interesting.
I could see
I'll
him
be
as an
doing this
Archie.
all afternoon now. I'll be looking up famous people's real names.
Good. Anytime I can steer people to old Hollywood. I love old Hollywood. It was the best.
It is.
Best.
It's interesting. So hang on, let me quickly look up Clark Gable. Oh, he was called Clark Gable, I think. Clark Gable. I think William Clark Gable. So his surname was William. Yeah. So literally the studio could have just come across and said, no, this isn't going to work for us. You're going to be this person. And
yes, you'll be Marilyn Monroe. Go. Get out of here.
Wow. That's really... I wonder if behind the scenes, like in her person, because we don't know much, unfortunately. And actually, she is a really tragic character as well. Was a really tragic person, wasn't she? She suffered from, and she was really clever. That's the thing a lot of people don't realize. I think she formed her own film company or production.
She did, yeah.
And nobody knows about this. And then Hollywood, because they made her into starlet, because then she was kind of typecasted and put as this kind of dumb blonde figure.
Yeah.
She was super clever, wasn't she?
She was. And in fact, she started her own company in another case, a bit like Bette Davis, where she was trying to get out of her contract.
Okay.
So Fox saw her as only the blonde bimbo bombshell, and she didn't want that. So she started her own production company to get around that.
Sorry.
No, she did. Again, I just was reading this in Women versus Hollywood. A really brilliant read, really good. But I think they did 1 or 2 films, but not much after that.
Oh, okay. I was going to ask you that. Would she have done any films through that? Then did she manage to make anything?
I think she managed to make 1 or 2, and that was it.
Yeah. I wonder if that's still going. Do you reckon anyone will take it over?
No, her company folded.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, she was. I mean, she's fascinating when you read about her, and
she really is.
Watch it, and you don't realize that actually she was super clever, and so unbelievably troubled, wasn't she?
Yeah.
She had a really hard upbringing, and she was in foster homes and things like that. So actually, it's in a way you can kind of think of it like the studio's grooming them in a way.
Oh, absolutely.
Well, they're kind of because they haven't got a family or they come from a very broken family situation, you can kind of see as a young person, this is they come up as look, this is, you can have this, and you think of this person as kind of like a father figure, if you know what I mean.
Well, yeah, I think, but there was whole troops of people who didn't become starlets, who were shuffled through the system, and by the system I mean there was elocution lessons, there was posture, there were dance lessons.
Oh, really?
There was it was a whole training course that if the studio thought you had something, you would be forced to do all of these things. And you can imagine how exciting that would be, because you're on lot doing this stuff.
Yeah.
And B, like, you're learning all of these, oh, okay, this is how I'm supposed to be. This is great. Like, yeah, I mean, it was a whole system of training and investment, if you will, on the part of the
But then
studio.
that's really awful, because you would never be able to be yourself when, I can imagine that must be very conflicting. For,
Do you think?
well, you're being told to act this way, like, so even when they're not working, they are working, aren't they?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
That's what I mean. So even if they're not acting, they're not on doing the film. But then when they're in the public eye, they have to be doing this. They have to be made to look this way. So they are acting. It's still like,
Absolutely, yeah.
so you can see the kind of like on a scale type thing. Like, well, no, they don't know me for who I really am and who I really want to be. They know me for how I'm projected, and it still goes on.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And you can see how a lot of their problems from relationships stem because they don't know who to trust, and who to
Yeah, yeah,
feel,
yeah.
and because there's so many phony people, especially in that industry, I'd imagine, because they're all sucking up to
Yes.
you, I'd imagine. So yeah, it's quite toxic, is what I'm trying to say. I imagine, especially in that era,
Yeah, I think so. I think
that would
so.
have been. No, it'd be interesting to sort of what do you call it? Explore. I'll talk to you more. We'll do another episode on that to
Okay.
explore the old Hollywood, because yeah, that would be really interesting to see how far. Because I think it has sort of come on, obviously, throughout the years, but then I'm sure.
Changed entirely, yeah.
And I think sometimes, do you reckon the studios still have a bit of a say behind things? Do you know, like
Of course,
their stars on what they
absolutely.
should do? And
Absolutely, to an extent. Definitely not as significant as it was, but yeah, I mean, yeah, I think they do. I was trying to think if something like the Army Hammer case is relevant in terms of like studio control. So Army Hammer, huge star,
mm,
delicious, is accused of what, cannibalism, and then several women come forward and claim that he was sexually abusive,
wow,
and his career is done. So I don't know, is that studios just not wanting to pick him up, or is that, I don't know,
yeah,
is that on the same scale, or is that a different thing? But
yeah,
I think studios still really do have,
a big say.
yeah, I mean, if you're Disney, arguably one of the most powerful studios on the planet now,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
and they say you will not do that role or we won't hire you, I'm sure that still happens.
yeah. It's funny because you talked about Disney. That was another assignment we had to do at college for one term, was study the Disney Corporation.
Oh,
And that was really interesting, because I think that was in our second year doing BTEC Media Studies in the autumn term. So, for instance, it's a whole package. So, the lead up to a film that comes out, the way they market it and stuff. And it's actually very interesting. But then you don't realize the Disney corporate studio, for instance, company, they have their hands in every pocket,
everything.
like everything. And and our lecturer was saying, is it Buena Vista?
Uh-huh.
That's part of them, wasn't it? And then
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's named
what's the
after the street his first studio was on, Buena Vista.
yeah. But then there's all these ones like I'm gonna pick it
Touchstone,
up.
and
So what was what was the studio or that sort of was behind Pulp Fiction?
that was Miramax.
Was it?
Hmm.
I know that had something to do with one of the Disney channels or something. Because I'm going to quickly look it up. Disney channels. Oh, is it Touchstone? No, I'm sure they have their own sort of other channels. There's so many.
They
There's like
they have small studios, so you can call them like a boutique studio. What they do is Touchstone was actually created for. I don't know if you've seen the movie Splash with Tom Hanks and
yeah, I
Jeremy
like
Renner.
that film.
That was a Disney film, but when it was
Really?
about, yeah, when it was about to be released, I think
Daryl
with some
Hannah and John
reviews,
Candy.
yeah, it was too racy. I think it was a PG-13 or something rating, and Disney didn't want any of that to be associated with them, so they created Touchstone so
Okay.
that they could hide films of a more adult content under that
Yes.
umbrella, so
Okay.
you wouldn't associate it with Disney.
So Touchstone is the same company, but that was kind of like
Touchstone is a part of Disney, yeah.
so. But
And
it's
Buena
well,
Vista is the animation arm, and Pixar is part of them, and
okay.
now Miramax is part of them as well. And so
Oh, did
they're
they take over Miramax?
they bought Miramax before Weinstein's fall from grace.
Yes.
Bob and Harvey sold Miramax to Disney,
Right.
and then were disgruntled and left, and they started the Weinstein Company.
Ah, it's a lot of politics that go on behind the scenes, isn't
Oh,
it?
girl,
Really?
tons. It's all juicy.
Juicy, but then like you said, it is quite interesting because Disney, even though they're well known for being these like, oh, these lovely fairy tale cartoons and stuff, and then you realize they're making films for like 18s and X-rated films and stuff. So it's kind of like,
Well, not X-rated.
no, but you know what I mean. But you know what I mean. They have their own thing for adults because they
Yes,
don't want
yes.
it to be necessarily associated with Disney, but it is Disney, if you know what I mean. If you look
Yeah,
into it,
absolutely.
background.
And let's be honest though, if Splash were coming out now, they'd just throw it under the Disney ban. Like things have changed since what was that, 86 or whatever
Yeah, it's
year
not
Splash
racy
was.
when you watch it now.
No, not at all. But it was outside of their brand,
Oh, was it
and so that's
really?
why. Yeah, it was, because they were, especially back then before they were the mega craziness they are now, they were, it was Bambi, it was
Yeah.
whatever, Sleeping Beauty, and they didn't want, and they're the one thing Disney has always done really well is brand,
Mm.
like incredibly well.
Yeah.
So they knew it was very smart. They knew that they couldn't put that out under their name.
Yeah.
Really very smart.
Yeah.
And,
No,
and
they're
it
very
actually,
good at marketing, aren't they? I remember.
oh, genius.
I remember. Before we finished. So like as part of the thing, we realized that. So if when the main sort of animation feature came out, like Aladdin or like The Lion King. I mean, these were the big films at the time. It's kind
Yeah.
of a shame because they don't do that now, do they? But that's another thing. But it used to be a big thing, like it was Beauty and the Beast. That was a big thing. It would always be half term, and all the kids and the parents and the families would go watch that.
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
Not such a big thing now, is it? Because everyone can
Well,
just.
what's the latest one? Is the Lin Manuel the Colombian one? Oh, it was just out, and they did a big. I know they did a big release because they own a couple of theaters in Hollywood. They did a big release at El Capitan, and it was a big deal. I guarantee you, it would have been a big deal all around town.
Yeah.
So those films, you know the film I'm talking about, right? Is it Luca? No, it was. It was. So it's about this family who has special powers, and everyone in the family has powers except for one girl, and in the end, of course, she has to save everyone because the
Oh, I don't
magic's
know that
leaving.
one. Yeah. Yeah.
But it was a big. I'm sure there would,
Oh,
I'm sure it
okay.
was the same thing like you're talking
Yeah.
about.
It's probably like this generation's version of the stuff you grew up on. I think that's probably
Yeah,
why.
exactly.
I
Yeah,
think it sort of had a cut-off point, obviously when I got to that
those
was
will always be like
the big
Disney
one.
will always put out yet a big, and and it'll be, they keep Pixar separate, even though Pixar is part of them. Like
Yeah.
Pixar's new movies or Pixar's new movies, but their animated titles, their animated features usually get huge fanfare.
Okay.
Still, I agree. I think it's probably feels less to us because because movies go now, don't they? Remember when we were
Yeah.
kids? Movies were on for months.
But this is
You could
what
go
I was
down and
talking about. I spoke about with Jason and Tom. There was a period of time, especially in the 80s and 90s and all that, for like the same films were on for ages in a cinema, maybe up to
Yeah.
a year, and then eventually it would come up, but you'd have to wait a long time. And now the problem is, and I said this to someone, is that it's kind of greedy, because it's like, now we're waiting for it now, come on. And
Yeah.
it's like
Yeah.
literally 2 weeks in the cinema, then it's on Netflix, you know
It's
what I mean?
gone. Yeah. Yeah.
So
I wanted to go see Dune in the theater, but like, my God, you had to run,
yeah,
right?
oh
Like,
yeah, I think he said that as well.
yeah.
So it's
I
kind of
totally, yeah.
taken the thing away. But what I was saying is, with Disney marketing, is that like, for instance, I remember a period of time when McDonald's, they still might do it. So when the film
Oh, the
came
Happy
out,
Meal toys.
yeah. So they'd have the Happy Meal, and as part of that sort of, it was only for a short time, they'd have like a toy figure or toy figures from that film.
Yes, yes.
You remember?
I totally do, girl.
They
Yeah, that
still
was
do
like,
that.
they must do, right? Because the Happy Meal
Yeah.
toys, I haven't had a Happy Meal obviously in 100
No,
years,
I
but
know, but that was a clever form of marketing, because also McDonald's is
so smart.
huge.
And those are valuable too. Those sell
Oh,
really
really?
damn well. Oh my God. Yeah, yeah, yeah. If you can get like a classic toy Happy Meal, like that shit makes some money on eBay
Oh, so we have to
for
start
sure.
collecting them.
Yeah,
Go
they do.
back to
They make really
McDonald's.
good money. Yes, yes, they make really. Like in the States, if we call them flea markets or swap
Hmm.
meets,
Yeah.
and you arrive crack of dawn, you put all your shit out on the rug or whatever, on the blanket, and before the markets open, there's always these guys that go around, right? And they're looking for, it's always one of a few things, right? It's electronics, it's tools, it's any kind of dolls, it's costume jewelry, and it's like Happy Meal, like toys, like Happy
Oh,
Meal toys.
really?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, those make, if they're in good shape, that brings in some money.
Really?
Yeah,
Oh, so this
yeah.
is a good way to make money. All right, I'm gonna have to start going to McDonald's. I haven't
You
had
gotta,
McDonald's in years,
in
but
years,
maybe
keep
what I
them in the
can.
plastic. Don't open and play with them though. That's the key. You can't open and play with it.
Oh, okay, yeah. It's a bit like comic books, isn't it? Like untouched
Yes.
comic books. Yes, yes. And it's
Yeah.
like yes,
Gently, gently opening the comic book.
yes, yes. It's funny, isn't it? What people find. What do they call it? One man's rubbish is another man's treasure.
That's right.
Yeah. But yeah, that's another way of clever marketing, you know. And obviously, McDonald's is another big corporation. Disney's another big corporation. You imagine the
Yeah.
amount of people that go there. So, and then, like we said earlier, the music industry, that's also another version of it, isn't it? Like, I think with like Titanic, we're talking about Brian Adams and Robin Hood. That's mostly associated with Celine Dion's song, isn't it?
That's right. That's exactly right. Yeah, yeah,
Because
yeah.
really, when you watch that film now, it was a big deal at the time. It was like, it was huge, and it was the most
Huge.
expensive film.
That stayed in the theaters for like 100 years.
Yeah, and wasn't it two studios that had to make that film because it was so expensive?
So expensive. That's probably right. I know Fox is
There were two
one, and
studios that kind of combined to help with the budget. I mean, it was ridiculous amount of money for it.
it was. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But you
And
watch
they
it
built
now,
a
and
whole.
actually, it really isn't that. It's quite awful, the script, isn't it?
I
It
haven't seen it. I haven't seen it since it came out, but there's a reason for that, and that's because I didn't like it then, and I'm positive I'm not gonna like it now.
do you reckon?
Yeah, my favorite part of the whole movie was so the boat is already upended,
Yes.
and people are falling off into the water from the top of the boat,
That's
and
quite that's quite brutal. I remember that.
it was, and if you remember, one guy falls and he hits the sea, like one of the steamers, one of the
Oh, the
steam.
propeller. Yeah, no,
No, no, no, no, not the propeller. It was
oh,
like the smokestack, I
oh
guess, or
yes,
whatever
yes.
those are. And he
Ooh.
hits it, and then he bounces off, and that to me was hilarious. That was my
Are you
favorite part of the
serious?
movie.
You're quite sadistic.
Yeah, shit like that makes me laugh so hard. There's this, just last note. There's this director. He's a New York director. Part of like a part of the indie scene. His name is Hal Hartley, and his stuff is really, really brilliant, really good. But one of the things I really love about his work is always the background action. So background action is any extras. Say you're in a cafe and there are people behind you having a drink or whatever. That's called background action. Or you're standing on the street having a conversation and someone walks past. That's background action. So always in a Hal Hartley movie, his background action is absurd. Like
Oh,
the
you mean like the
main
film extras and the extras that
Yeah, exactly,
yeah.
exactly. So you've got the main couple, say they're talking, they're having a very serious conversation, and someone will be walking behind them and fall
Yeah.
and like trip and fall, and it just kills me every time. I find that hilarious.
You do see that in some TV shows. It's very subtle though, isn't it? Because you've
Yeah,
got the
yeah,
main action in front and then you got something really hilarious and silly and kind of random going on in the background and
exactly,
and
exactly.
it's quite
Random is the
funny.
key.
And it's quite funny that your eyes go from this to what you should be watching, going on
Yeah,
to that
yeah.
that's going on in the distance. All right, I'm going to ask you one more question and then we'll finish. Um, so we touched upon it earlier. Why is it? Do you know why? This is a really random question. That there are so many few female filmmakers compared to male filmmakers. Is there a reason? Do you think? Because we're just as capable of being filmmakers, but for
And in
some
fact, I'd argue more so because part of being a director is multitask. It's really, really important that you're able to multitask and think on your feet and modify your vision because, oh shit, we didn't get the light or we can't shoot in that location or whatever. You've got to be able to think on your feet. And I think that maybe stereotypically or how we're raised or whatever the case is, we're certainly better at that in general than men are. So why aren't there more of us directing films? I
mm,
think definitely there was a shit ton of us at the very start of film. There was a shit ton of us, and women making real inroads and doing real innovative things at the very start of it. And when it became more profitable, we were ushered away. It wasn't, I think behaviors that men thought appropriate for women. I
mm,
think.
at the time,
You know,
yes.
the bossy, the commanding, the leading, and I don't I think it's perception because if you even look at the numbers of women who have done, if you look at the number of people in general who have done one feature film, and that's a huge hill to get over to do your first feature film,
Yes,
and
yes.
then the number of people who are given the opportunity to do or cultivate the opportunity to do their second is, I mean, it drops, right? So say 10 people got to do their first feature, something like 3 of them will get to do a second feature.
Mm,
And of that, zero point 0.8 will be a woman. It is so much harder for us to get a film out. It's so much harder for us to get a second film. And if we flop, we're we're dead in the water. If we take time off to care for a loved one or have a kid, we have to come back. There are countless stories of women who've given birth or had to care for a sick parent, who were top line, let's say television directors, who had to
mm,
come back and act as and do shadowing because money people were like, I don't know, you haven't done this in a while.
yeah,
Well, so what?
yeah.
So I mean, I think it's perception. I think it's this idea that we're gentler, that we can't handle it, that we're not, all of those stereotypes of women. I think
But it kind of started off as being, like you said, a male. In the old days, I'm saying it started off in that way, didn't it? That it was very much male orientated. But I think now, like that you're
well, in
saying,
the very beginning, in the very
slowly
very beginning,
bringing more and more women into the film
well,
industry.
knock on wood, let's hope. In the very very beginning, there was plenty of women directors,
Oh,
and
really?
and yeah, and several successful women-run not really studios, but studios,
Hmm.
small production companies. But I just think it's so hard for the world to perceive us in this role. I mean, even when I go out for corporate work, I often, to be fair, play like I have a business partner who's a male, who's just not at this meeting. because it seems to make clients feel a little more comfortable.
Mm.
I think we're still not at a space yet where we can feel like women are reliable, responsible, will get the job done,
Yeah.
which is complete nonsense.
Of course, it's
But
total BS. Yeah.
I think that that's still a truism.
Yeah.
I mean, if you
But for
if,
instance, sorry.
no, go.
No, I was going to say, because I mean, there have been cases where I think, like you said, women at one point were, especially if you see in, the films in the 80s, and they're very kind of like, oh, they're the love interest, they're not the big one, and then later on came like Sigourney Weaver's Ripley, so she was kind of she was the big protagonist, and actually that was meant to be for a man, wasn't it,
that's right.
originally? So that proved also, and she talks about that as well, how thank God the times are changing, and now women aren't being seen as that on screen as being just the love interest, the one that's always crying, and the genuine one. But so that's kind of one side to it. But then I was thinking, well, actually, you look at someone like Catherine Bigelow, is well known for doing kind of very like tough films,
butchy films.
and the first film I saw of hers was I think it was Blue Steel. Actually, no, I didn't realize till much later, only very recently, because I looked back on it, that was her, because that's a real kind of like a manly type film.
Yeah.
Then you have Point Break. That's very much a bloke film.
Yeah.
And you wouldn't think that actually, and The Hurt Locker. I never saw The Hurt Locker, but I know that's a very difficult
military
film to
man
watch.
led. Yeah.
And you'd think that would be a male director as well. That's all her. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that just goes to show that why not? Why it doesn't
exactly.
capable of being
Do you know
thing.
Do you know who Gina Davis is?
Yes.
Yeah. She's
Yeah.
got an amazing.
Thelma Louise.
Yes. She's got because part of, I think you're pointing to, the reason I think of her is because I think you're making a very good point, which is we don't see women in these roles on screen. We don't see women in these, and so I mean that's why Black films are so important. That's why queer oriented films are so important, is to quote unquote normalize it, to bring that. And so she's got a whole media foundation, and their whole job is to put women in roles that are traditionally thought of as male, even if it's a background character, even if it's someone with just one line. So they're pushing to have women doctors, women dentists, women scientists, whatever, in just as like normal people in the movie. And the idea there is proven statistically, is that when we start to see women when we start to see people of color in these roles, when we start to see disabled people in these roles, we start to understand that they can do that too.
Yeah.
And we have to change that perception before it becomes easier for the rest of us to tell our stories, as easy as it is for a white male to tell his story.
For sure. All right then. Is there anything you want to say? I think we've pretty much.
I think we've covered the gamut.
I think we have. But no, it's been really fascinating talking to you. We're going to talk more for sure.
Good. Yeah, it was good fun.
And you're like me. We could just ramble on for ages.
For ages, yes.
But it's been absolutely fascinating talking to you.
It's been a pleasure.
And you said that you're a film lecturer, and at one point when we were off camera, you said maybe we can get some of your students on. So if you wanted to do that, you could do that as well. That'd be interesting. You'd have to make sure they all behave
only
themselves.
Good things. Yeah, exactly.
So like mute everyone's camera, and I'll say, right.
You're like, okay, what are you gonna say? Okay, now we'll let you on. Okay, cool.
You could be one of my admin people with me.
Yeah, exactly.
Valentine's Day is coming up soon, so maybe if you want, you could help me with that when they can all come on and help.
Oh, fab. Okay.
So we can do a Valentine's special or another thing.
Discuss our favorite romantic movies.
Yeah, Valentine's films.
Yes.
All right then. Is there anything you want to say, Laurel, before we say goodbye?
No, it was just a real pleasure. Thank you
You
so much for the
too.
opportunity.
And please feel free to come back anytime because it's been really
Oh, thank you.
talking. No, I really enjoyed having you on, and that's part of the reason why I do this as well because I really, really enjoy talking to other creative people, and you learn so much. Also, like the film industries, everyone just thinks, oh, actor, director, producer, but there's so much that goes on behind it.
Tons, tons.
So if you know anyone else that's in the industry, like I always say, I want to talk to people who work in costumes or in makeup,
Okay.
extras, or even that's a whole different side. I used to do that. I'm sure you did as well. And the marketing side, that's also a thing. I think that not many people really think about that. Actually, that's a big part of the process of
Ginormous, absolutely ginormous.
once it's edited and stuff. There's more to just like
Beyond, even while it's being shot, you start
yeah.
marketing as soon as the picture gets greenlit.
Oh,
Like,
really?
oh yeah,
That fast?
absolutely.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
that would be interesting. I don't know who I could approach that. Maybe I should contact some companies. I tried contacting some, but nobody got back to me. It's like I need people to talk to. So if you know anyone in marketing or in any part of the film sector, absolutely. Like I spoke to a film colorist, and I've spoken to filmmakers and a producer and a DP, and so no, it's really interesting hearing. It's kind of like when you hear when kids and they bring their parents in and their parents talk about their jobs.
Yeah, yeah.
It's kind of like that.
Cool, cool. Yeah, you know what? You should talk to. I'm gonna hook you up with Eric. He just
Okay.
did. He recorded some of the sounds for June. So.
Okay. Well, that'd be really interesting.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I'll hook you up.
Yeah, that'd be great. Just quickly, because you said about sound, we were talking about earlier about DPs and how they can, if they don't get on with the actors and the actors are really horrible to I quickly spoke about this. We spoke about this with Jason about how there's many horror stories of how the sound is still left on while actors
Oh yes,
people are slacking.
my favorite. I love that.
And I love hearing these stories. They're funny. And he said that goes on quite a lot. You hear horror stories behind wedding, films because people don't realize their mic's on and they're basically slagging the mother-in-law or the groom is talking to the best man about how they slept with the stripper the night before and they don't realize.
Oh yeah,
that must happen a lot as well. I'm sure that's
it does. Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. But I'll tell you, you only have to go to the bathroom once with your mic on before you don't do that ever again.
Oh really?
Yeah, that was how I learned my lesson.
Oh, so it has happened to you.
Oh yeah.
It's easily done. Anyway.
It is.
All right, well, it's been an absolute pleasure, Laurel. And
pleasure, thank you.
Feel free to come back anytime or hook me up with anyone else who's interested in talking to me. That'd be great.
I will do. Thank you.
You're welcome. Take care.
Bye, sweetheart.
Bye.
Bye.